Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the South Burlington City Council meeting for April 20th, 2026. For our first agenda item, we will recite the Pledge of Allegiance, led by our City Manager, Jesse Baker. We're going to get the flag out first. Very visible. Indivisible. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Item 2 is instructions on exiting the building in case of an emergency and a review of our technology options with the City Manager, Jesse Baker.
Thank you. So for those in the room, thank you for joining us. If there's an emergency during this meeting, you can go out either the left or right side of the auditorium and then turn left or right to get outside. For those joining us remotely, thank you for joining us as well. If you'd like to speak during any item on the agenda, you can use the raise hand feature and the chair will call on you, or you can indicate that you're interested in chatting in the Q&A in the webinar feature, and I will have the chair call on you. Other than that, we are not monitoring the chat for content.
Thank you, Jesse. Item 3, which is agenda review. Do we have any additions, deletions, or changes in the order of our agenda items tonight? No? Okay, great. Going to item 4, which is time for comments and questions from the public for items that are not on our agenda tonight. We have 2 hands raised. The first hand was in the back. Come on down. And look carefully at the directions on the podium there, and then tell us your name, please.
Hello, Drew Schatzer from South Burlington. I'm probably going to say something later about the agenda item, but I also just wanted to mention a couple things first. One being, I just want to let folks know that we had a community member, one of our South Burlington residents, leave on Saturday to go join a group that's doing an aid flotilla to Palestine in the coming weeks. So Jimmy Lees, you guys probably know him. I know he's run for city council before, so I just wanted to do a shout out to Jimmy. We're all very proud of him. It's a dangerous and a heroic thing he's doing. He's a personal hero of mine. So I'm going to be flying my flag on my car every day until he's home safe with us. I also wanted to mention, about the task force conversation that came up in the last meeting. There's just a couple of points after discussing with some of our neighbors about what was decided. I just wanted to echo some of their concerns that as well as mine, but one being that many of us believe that we need a third-party facilitator to assist with that conversation, that task force conversation around March 11th. Another is just, again, the format that was decided on. The community members that I've spoken with, we don't believe is a very effective way to have this conversation. It seems like it's closed off from the community at large, and it's specifically focusing on groups that I think there's kind of a misunderstanding of what their role was that day and what they really do in our community. So one being, I think, Councilman Chalnick asked for leaders of migrant justice and Indivisible to come speak. From the conversations I've been having, Indivisible is a leaderless movement, and it doesn't represent anyone or any particular thing, and it doesn't seem like a very appropriate ask of them. And like it just seems like a flawed premise from the beginning to invite a leader of that group to come speak with you. The other being migrant justice. They're very busy. They have a lot of other work. They're very important work that they need to do. And they just recently gave a very detailed report of their summary of what went right or wrong with March 11th to the Burlington City Council. So I would just encourage you all to watch that recording if you want to know what migrant justice has to say about what happened that day, rather than asking them to come repeat it all again for you. So I don't know, it's probably nothing that can happen tonight. I don't know if there's a way we can maybe have another discussion at our next meeting, but I think that the the task force needs to be approached differently. And if you need to hear from other community members about that too, I can try to have more people here next time. But thank you.
Thank you very much. Next. Any hands up?
My name is Michael Mittard. I had a question about the current status of the conservation easement for Hubbard and which land trust or who are we talking to about it? I haven't been here to make a nuisance of myself for quite a while. And the other question I have may not be appropriate for you, but I think that the South Burlington Land Trust should have a seat at the table on the advisory group for the Parks Master Plan. The Land Trust is an important stakeholder when it comes to parks and open space and recreation and conservation. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And Lisa Yankowski, I'm guessing, is Lisa Y. Did you want to make a... Lisa, can you hear me? There you are. Are you talking? We can't hear you, maybe...
Can you hear me now?
No, yes, we hear you now.
Okay. Sorry. Technological issues. I just want to say thank you for the meeting with what Jesse had said, and I had already said something to Jesse the night of the last meeting when all the protesters were there. And I just wanted to add, Andrew, I saw your comments in the other paper. Very succinct, and thank you. I think it gave a good overview of what transpired. That's all I have to say about that.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Anybody else? Anybody else in the audience? No? Okay.
I'll respond to you. I'll respond to you in writing, Michael.
All right, we're going to move on to item 5, which is the councilors' announcements and reports on committee assignments, and then the city manager's report. Who would like to go first? Elizabeth.
All right. Let's see. I missed the last meeting. I did have a chance to view it. And since then, I did attend the economic development meeting and sat in on that. I won't report anything out. Specifically, I know Andrew was at it as well. I would highly recommend there was a summary of an airport report that I thought gave a lot of interesting facts and figures that were updated, and maybe that would be something that could be circulated. I also attended the Planning Commission meeting, and were you at that, Andrew? Yeah. Just a couple quick highlights. And I know, Tim, you weren't able to be there, but UBM presented their long-term plan, and there's no development plan, no specific projects planned at this time, but they did introduce, others may be familiar with, but the concept of land banks, which is properties that they've identified for potential projects in the future, but there's nothing planned at this time. And then there was a pretty robust discussion about the potential for the Planning Commission reviewing sort of a combination of not so much senior housing, but long-term care, as well as small to medium medical offices that may come back to council at some point. The housing also had their, they had two Fair Housing Month events. One was on renters' rights, which is held at the library. I was not able to attend that. But that is available. I believe it's available online. And then the second was a book discussion, which I appreciate Beth and Andrew both coming to. And unfortunately, Andrew had to make the decision to not have a quorum at the meeting, but I appreciated him coming. The book was called Brave New Homes, and the group had a good discussion about the variety of housing models that might be available for review, and housing policy that might include smaller, energy efficient, and different kinds of homes, including ADUs, that might represent infill within our city. I just became aware today that there is in concert with, or South Burlington is sponsoring a session on ADUs on June 22nd. I don't think a place is identified just yet, but I did hear that from Kelsey today. And I think that is it. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew?
Sure, thanks. Let's see, busy couple of weeks. I attended the Safe Routes to School group meeting, and there was a kind of robust discussion about what that group's going to do going forward, because it largely has fulfilled its mission now of identifying through surveys issues, around the city that impede safe walking and biking to our school system. It's identified routes. And all that's kind of mapped out. There've been at various events also with the schools, educational events. So it's mostly fulfilled its mission. The question is what going forward. And there was kind of consensus in the group that it makes sense to continue to have a forum where the city and the school, can get together and talk about these things, and that this is a good forum for that. So the intent was to ask Bike Ped to basically allow the group to continue as it is on a perpetual basis and continue doing what it's doing. Unfortunately, I'm also on Bike Ped, but I had to leave before that discussion in Bike Peds. I don't know exactly what the resolution was. I don't know if anyone does, but hopefully the Bike Ped committee agreed to that. Okay. Then talking about Bike Ped, our chief gave a really great discussion around Bike Ped safety, traffic enforcement, highlighted how we're kind of doing more traffic enforcement now, which should lead to safer roads. And we had a robust discussion about e-bikes and e-motos, and talked about education and enforcement. So that was really good. And thank you to the chief for coming and the thoughtful presentation. And then Bike Ped committee discussed their work plan, and then again went on to Safe Routes to School, which I don't know what happened. I attended the Sextons meeting, and the Sextons are hard at work, really doing great work, focused on beautification of Eldridge Cemetery. They've got this large anonymous donation that they're using very judiciously for plantings and for paths and landscaping, and thinking really hard about how to make sure all that new stuff survives, how to get the water in, and really, really good discussion. It's a great group. I attended the Economic Development Committee meeting, where there was a presentation. Well, there was discussion about the communication plan, and one of those is one of the strands of that is the technology kind of innovation center, and talked about Beta. And I don't really remember the details of that, but Beta, what I said, contributed 1.2 billion, I think was the number, right, to the economy. Not exactly sure how that was computed, and 6,000 jobs, just huge economic engine for the city. Discussion about how much the Economic Development Committee can do before we hire our director, kind of back and forth, and they're just kind of feeling that out to make sure they don't step on anybody's toes. Kind of worked out their work plan. So that was a good meeting. I did attend the Renters' Right workshop. That was a joint workshop by our housing committee. Thank you, Elizabeth, and CVOEO. There's a lot of folks there, a lot of good discussion, right to repair, how to get your deposit back, what does the eviction process look like, and I thought that was really nice that CVO did that. And then I was hoping to attend Brave New Home, but unfortunately, I guess we didn't think enough about it, and wasn't recorded and wasn't warned. So I think next time we have sessions like that, we'll know to do it a little more formally. So that's it.
Great, Andrew, thank you. Beth?
Sure. I'm going to be very quick. So I did not have a committee meeting in the interim. The Energy Committee is this week. I did attend the Brave New Home discussion, and I think Elizabeth gave a nice overview of that. It was just a very open discussion about people's impressions of how we got here, and some of the creative ways that we can help address the housing issues that we're experiencing. And I think that's about it. I hoped to attend this SB3C event, but it got canceled, unfortunately. So anyway, that's all I have.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Beth. Andrew and I attended the conversations with a counselor last Saturday, and we had three residents show up. There was a request by one individual to how South Village could go ahead and try and resurrect a plan to get the recreation field that was planned there, for which there's money to get that going again. And then there was a spirited discussion about development versus conservation and about Hubbard Park. I didn't go to the Planning Commission because I was on vacation in Florida. Thank you very much. Thanks for all the snow when I got back yesterday and this morning on my car. I also received feedback from a couple of people concerning the HOA meeting for the cider mill development, where many residents expressed great concerns about the e-motos. These are the non-pedalable, electric motorized bikes that young people are riding, and they're concerned about their speed and their behavior and not stopping for stop signs, especially coming off of bike paths right onto Cider Mill, and there have been some close calls. So I think we need to maybe have some discussion either through the other paper or other channels to try and get parents to help their kids understand what the rules of the road are, especially for these vehicles, and whether they should be driven on bike paths or on roads, and what rules they should adhere to. Because I don't know if the parents know what's going on. I mean, when you have 4 kids going 40 miles an hour doing wheelies up your street, it's a little disconcerting. I mean, it's great that they can do that. They're talented to do that. I appreciate it, but it's not real safe behavior. So anyway, so that's all I have. Jesse?
Thank you. So few quick updates from us. Just a reminder to the council and the community that Illuminate Vermont is this weekend. It's our street festival on Market Street. Alana's very excited about it. So it's Friday and Saturday night from 5 to 9 on Market Street. Really encourage folks to come out and visit with their neighbors. This past weekend was our first International Food Festival. We had 250 tickets sold out, and 50 people on the wait list. So great turnout, 16 different local food vendors, and huge thanks to Adam and his team for coming up with that idea. We are into construction season, so just a reminder to council and the community that we are updating our construction page regularly. So if you want to know about capital projects going on in the city, you could go to our website, resources, and then our construction page, and that information is all there. Specifically, actively in the works right now, we are installing a culvert under Dorset Street just near Park Road this coming Wednesday. That's to upsize the culverts for when they need to drain the water tanks to make sure that we have the capacity there. City Center Boardwalk is under construction, and if the weather cooperates, hope to have that completed by Memorial Day weekend. We will begin construction at Hubbard Recreation and Natural Area in mid-May. The Airport Parkway wastewater treatment facilities, adding the clarifier, construction for that is underway. And we have restarted the drinking water line replacement on Brewer Parkway, off Shelburne Road. And we're able to install the new connection to that water line under Route 7 after hours last week, so minimize impact on traffic. So huge thanks to our capital projects team, who is doing a lot of work at the moment. Thanks.
Thank you, Jesse. Moving on to item 6, which is the consent agenda. We have several items. 6A, which is consider and sign the disbursements. 6B, award the FY27 annual paving program contract to SD Ireland Brothers and authorize the Deputy Director of Operations to execute the contract. Yes, there are some primary roads in there that are in bad shape that will be paved, including Swift and Dorset and Spear. 6C, approve resolution number 2026-7, setting the fees for public use of city electric vehicle charging stations. And 6D, which is approve an agreement with the Burlington Interstate Center LLC to make improvements allowing the issuance of a zoning permit and move forward the East-West Alternative Transportation Crossing project, and authorize the city manager to negotiate, execute, and amend an agreement in substantially the same form as attached. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Just on 6C, Jesse, so were we able to confirm in fact we could we're able to not charge at night for the folks that leave? Because I see the resolution was to not charge between 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. So we've confirmed that that's something. I know Bettina
They're
wasn't
not
sure.
charging.
Right
Yeah.
at night. So we're able to do that.
Yes.
Oh, that's great. Okay, that's good news. And I just want to commend the public, as Tim alluded to 6B. It's an extensive list of roads to be paved. So I'm certainly looking forward to it, and I commend the public to review that. And yeah, it's a good list.
Even my employer filled some potholes last week when I wasn't here because I submitted the ticket to get them filled. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And it is unanimous. Thanks. We'll move on now to item 7, which is receive the March 11th, 2026 after action reports and associated documents and have a discussion. Jesse Baker, City Manager, and Bill Bro, our Police Chief, come on down. Good evening.
So I'm going to start this presentation tonight. As the community likely knows, we released a trove of information last Thursday. It is linked to the agenda tonight. There is a memo from me, the after action emergency incident report from our emergency management director, Steve Locke, a review and report from our police chief, Bill Bro, as well as all of the body worn camera footage and past documentation that we put out. So I want to start this conversation by just again saying how the actions of ICE on March 11th put so many in our community in harm's way. Not only the residents of 337 Dorset Street, the traveling public, including students and families getting to school, the protesters and protectors on site, the public safety professionals, and the surrounding communities. ICE pitted local Vermont law enforcement between their agents and the community that we are tasked to serve every day, and did significant harm to the community, eroding the public trust that we work so hard to hold every day with our neighbors. The documents that are attached to this agenda are the result of really extensive review. The first step of that, as we do with all emergency events, is to do a comprehensive review of our actions according to our policies. So that started the morning after March 11th. We then went through, the chief's team went through all of the data associated with the day. We had a series of after action review meetings and discussions, and what results is the product that the community sees linked to this agenda. In the interest of trying to improve a shared understanding of what happened on March 11th, we wanted to be as transparent as possible and put these documents forward to the community, as well as all of the body worn camera footage. We know it's a lot. We know it's really hard to watch. So given that, I want to spend a little intentional time this evening talking about the key findings that we, as your city professional staff, found in that review, as well as what we learned from that review and what we plan to change moving forward. I'm highlighting points in my memo, so if folks want to follow along or hear more about what I'm talking about, I encourage you to look at that second linked document on the council agenda. So South Burlington Police, and I'm going to primarily talk about the South Burlington Police because that is what is under my sphere of control and under the chief's sphere of control and your sphere of control. So we were on site on Dorset Street on March 11th for the sole purpose of protecting our community and the public safety of our community. Throughout the day, the chief and other agencies worked really diligently to try and convince ERO and ICE to stop the execution of any civil and criminal warrants and call off their actions and remove themselves from our community. ERO and ICE refused to do this. Once the U.S. District Court in Vermont, judge in Vermont, approved a criminal warrant for an individual believed to be inside 337 Dorset Street, and a search warrant for that location, ICE made it very clear that they were going to execute that warrant by using any means necessary. And as a result of that, Chief Bro made the decision to place local and state law enforcement officers between ICE and our neighbors on scene for the sole purpose of ensuring the safety of the community in the hopes of limiting physical harm. The South Burlington Police had no lawful authority to stop or prevent ICE from carrying out the enforcement activities or serving the warrant. The detentions that were made were pursuant to the criminal warrant and not the civil warrant. And the courts would be the place to go to argue if ICE further violated the criminal warrant. During the execution of the warrant, the crowd physically interfered with the execution of that warrant, violating several state sections of local law and adding to the violence on the scene. Through our review of the body-worn camera footage, there are no incidents, both on our camera footage that we reviewed, as well as of our agency partners, where South Burlington police officers use excessive force. We've also received no direct complaints through our system of other photographic evidence or direct complaints of that from the community. The South Burlington Police Department does have an affirmative duty to intervene when witnessing another officer use excessive force. I think the review of the body-worn camera footage confirmed that throughout the day, our South Burlington police officers put themselves physically between our federal law enforcement partners and members of the community in order to de-escalate incidents where tensions were very high. Upon our review, we also found that there was no violation of our state-mandated fair and impartial policing policy. And we found that throughout the course of the day, there was a wide variety of our neighbors on scene, meaning that there were lots of folks on scene who were very actively, peacefully protesting. There were members who identified themselves as protectors, and some who described themselves as future vigilantes. That placed our officers in a really tricky position of lowering the violence and the tension in the room or on the street. While we certainly value Vermonters' rights to peacefully protest, we have for generations, we can't stand by and watch anyone be violent against another member of our community. So we've identified a series of next steps through our after action conversations. A note to the council. I think that as we go through the next weeks and months to come, we will bring you some recommendations about how to prioritize these next steps and the financial resources we will need to implement them. So this is certainly not the first conversation we will have about those improvements. And I think I want to make it very clear that these recommendations follow a review of all of the available data and are not calling into question the performance of our South Burlington Police Department, but rather improvements that we can make in our policies and our resources citywide. So those next steps really focus on improving our team's knowledge of incident command systems through training and policies, improving the technology that we have to use in our emergency operations center, as well as the policies for activating that EOC, and then operational steps that the chief will use in the future if and when we need to respond to such an incident. And we're happy to answer any questions you have about any of these items as we go through this conversation. Again, I want to reiterate that we posted more than 60 hours of body-worn camera video. Those images are incredibly hard to watch. The police chief did have operational control throughout the entire event and has the unique charge to run the operational tactics during this very chaotic event and other chaotic events that our team faces every day. Your oversight of him is through me as your employee, and we encourage you in this dialogue and in the questions in the conversation we'll have over the next hour or so to ask us the questions that you are hearing from the community so we can develop that shared understanding, but also remember that the words we use matter, how the community perceives those words that matter, and how our officers, who we are hoping to retain and recruit in the future, those words matter to them as well. So with that, I will turn it over to Chief Bro.
Thank you. Good evening, Bill Bro, your police chief. Thank you for this opportunity to discuss the after action report. I'm happy to answer any specific questions you have, but before I do that, I wanted to reiterate why decisions were made on March 11th. Our review has been an opportunity to learn and has highlighted areas of improvement, and we have already begun improving operations. As the person making command decisions on March 11th, I want to reiterate to the council that every decision I made, which were thought through with debate and input through a unified command structure that involved command representatives from both Vermont State Police and the Burlington Police, as well as others, was in what I believe was in the best interest of public safety, while also upholding state law and South Burlington Police Department policy. I believe that the facts outlined in the report, and I want to reiterate facts based on a host of actual recordings, not on ideology, political belief, or public opinion, confirm that. I believe that as a police leader, it is imperative to provide the community with a transparent and thorough review of what occurred. I respect and agree with the need to ensure that actions of local and state law enforcement were proper. However, it's important to understand that, as this event clearly highlights, maintaining public safety while ensuring compliance with federal law, state law, and department policy is not always black and white, nor is it often easy to watch. It is also important to understand that police must respond to behavior in the moment and not what has become known after the fact. Although I fully respect people's right to disagree with their government, violence in the street can never be the answer. That fight should occur in Congress or in a courtroom. As I stated in the report, as police chief, I cannot, do not, and will not condone violence, intentional violations of a law, or harm inflicted on others based upon ideology or political belief. I remain extremely proud of the level of professionalism displayed by each and every member of the South Burlington Police Department in what was truly a no-win situation. With that, I would be happy to answer any questions any of you might have.
Who wants to go first? Any questions? You do have some?
Yeah, honestly, most of the questions have been answered. Thank you for the incredibly thorough report. And I had a lot of questions and had a conversation with Jesse, and I think the report really does a fabulous job of detailing everything and answering most things that we'd want. Most things that maybe were unclear. Maybe just big picture question. Having done all this and knowing what our next steps are, and having reviewed all the actions, in hindsight, would you have done anything different that day?
No, I think we responded with what we knew at the time, right? And again, it's important to understand what we knew at the time. I think, one of the things that, and trust me, nobody's probably critiqued this more than me. What I think we underestimated both the, for lack of a better term, incompetence of ICE and their inability to take a step back and truly their lack of leadership, in my opinion, that was displayed by ICE on scene, in that nobody was willing to take a step back and truly think about what they had in front of them and why they were about to take the actions they took and the implications on public safety that had. I underestimated that ever being as extreme as it was. I also underestimated that the people in the crowd would go to the extremes that they went to interfere. A simple thing that sounds naive, but all day long people were chanting ICE out. And it never dawned on me that they would then surround ICE vehicles and not let ICE vehicles leave the scene, right? I mean, it's just common sense to me. So I think there was, we underestimated how long the event was going to go on. So there were a lot of things in hindsight. We could have done a much better job. We weren't prepared for it to go on as long as it did. When we lost daylight, that completely changed the kind of the tenor of the crowd as well. Things like that weren't taken into consideration early in the day. If I could do it again, I would quickly bring on more staff to make sure that we were more prepared to deal with what we saw. And you know, my concern I think was highlighted. Unfortunately, at the end of the night, when the ICE SWAT team, just to save a vehicle, went back and deployed flashbangs and fired pepper balls at people to save a vehicle, which they later abandoned on 89. So that was our concern, and I underestimated, I guess, the response from both ICE and the community, and how the extremes that either the ICE or the community was going to go to.
Thank you. I do have actually two particular questions also. Curious when we learned that folks were detained that were not named in the warrant, and the reason I ask that is because there's been a lot of, you know, from some members of the community, a notion that we should have intervened when we knew that. And can you just provide? I know the report addresses this to some extent, but you just provide some more color about when we learned that, and then what our rights, obligations, duties, powers were,
Right.
Given that.
So I guess I'll start by the second half of your question, which was, you know, the legal authority. So federal agents have the right, just like local police officers do, to develop probable cause and make warrantless arrest for crimes that occur in their presence. Right. So for that to happen, if it's a local issue, the police officer, or if it's a federal issue, the federal agent has to be where they are legally, and has to be able to develop probable cause that the crime, whatever they're investigating, the crime, there's probable cause to believe the crime has been, is being, or is about to be committed. So for simple terms, if a police officer went to a convenience store in the middle of the night, front door was smashed out, and the alarm went off, and now the police officer's there investigating the alarm, he or she is there legally, the front door is smashed out, and inside there's a person loading their pockets, you know, at the register, prying the register open and loading their pockets with the cash from the cash register. That police officer doesn't have a warrant to arrest that person for burglary, but has probable cause that all of the elements of a burglary, breaking and entering to commit a crime within the establishment that they broke into, has occurred, right? We don't need a warrant. We don't need to stop and call a judge for a warrant. We can make an on-site arrest because we've developed probable cause. Federal agents have the same authority. So federal agents were at the location lawfully. They were inside the residence lawfully under the authorized search and arrest warrant. They were in there when they came across 3 other individuals that were not named in their warrant. They have and I'm not debating whether or not they had enough probable cause, but they felt they had enough probable cause to make on-site arrest of those individuals, which they did. We knew other people were in the home earlier in the day. We knew there was at least one woman in the house because we had interactions through others about a child in the home. And at one point earlier in the morning, they were going to transfer custody of the child to somebody outside the home. And at one point, a woman inside the home changed her mind, and then later did that. So we knew there was at least one woman in the house. At one point, there was a child in the home that later was taken out of the home. And ICE had told us they watched 2 adult males run into the home. So we knew there were other people in the home all day long. Who was their suspect? Whether or not the suspect they were looking for was in the home or not, we did not know until ICE had brought out 3 individuals. It was at that point that the ICE supervisor that was in our emergency operations center told us that the individual they were looking for was not one of the 3. They developed probable cause. Due process, in my opinion, worked exactly as it should in this case. Those people were brought before a judge, and a judge decides whether or not the probable cause was sufficient to detain people or not. That's the same way it works in the state. We arrest people without a warrant. We take them. We do a probable cause affidavit, which ends up going to the state's attorney's office, and ultimately a judge decides if we have enough probable cause or not. We have no authority to nor could we. I don't know the elements of a federal offense. I don't know what probable cause they developed, and quite frankly, I don't have the authority to stop them at that time anyway.
Appreciate that. That answers that question. I appreciate that. One last thing, and this is not to be critical. It's a question. Folks have raised that the road opened before the road was clear, and I'm wondering whether, in hindsight, you would have done that differently, have kept the road open longer to ensure folks were safe before it reopened.
Certainly, the decision to open the road, and I think what you're referring to is the chaotic nature in which, about the same time that ICE was, well, the lack of information that we had from our ICE representative about the ICE vehicle that was still stuck on the scene and being surrounded by people. Initially, we were told in the command post that all of the ICE vehicles had left the area, that they had safely been removed from the area. That is when myself and other command staff members gave the orders to our respective agencies to remove themselves from the area. I believed that our presence was only going to continue to agitate an already very agitated crowd. When I thought ICE was out of the area, I gave the decision for us to pull our people out of the road, out of that area altogether, and open the road. My thought was, if ICE is gone, let's get any local law enforcement. There's no need for us to be there, and get the road open sooner than later to ensure, let's get the area back to a sense of normalcy. It would also help to there's no reason for people to just mill about if they can't stand in the middle of the street. What quickly transpired over about a 5 or 6 minute period was the fact that there was still an ICE vehicle on site. That vehicle was being surrounded. That's when we have a lot of back and forth with ICE, and ultimately have to call Boston to get permission, even though we told them repeatedly to abandon the vehicle, to get the ICE agent out of there safely. And I had actually called for a tow truck that the ICE agent refused to leave the scene. That required officers, and that's when the ICE SWAT team went and deployed flashbangs. That resulted in state police and local officers going back to the scene. And once that vehicle was safely out, then the crowd turned on a few troopers that were trying to leave the area. So that's why there's a back and forth as to when the road was open, when it wasn't. Once it was confirmed that the final troopers were able to safely get out of the area, the decision to open the road was made again. And that's, I think, 7 or 8 minutes later, the road is finally opened to traffic. And that was after, and some of this is through telephone calls, that was after we felt confident that people had walked the road. There was nobody laying in the road. There was nobody injured in the roadway. That we were confident of. We also had Fish and Game and highway enforcement, motor vehicle enforcement officers stationed at both ends to assist law enforcement vehicles, ICE and other law enforcement vehicles, away from the area, because we didn't want them getting stuck at a red light only to have the crowd then circle around ICE vehicles at the next red light. So we had those pre-planned. They were positioned to help regardless of which way they were to leave the area. So it wasn't just, hey, let's open the road because we trying to get anybody injured, or there was a lot of miscommunication or a lot of things happening. And part of that truly was because we were not getting good information back from the ICE supervisor in the room with us.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Other questions or comments?
If I could ask a couple of questions. Thank you, Chief, for the thorough report. I sent a couple of questions over. I can take many of those offline at some point. They're more informational and educational to me personally. I did have a question about, once the criminal warrant was issued, there's reference made to a dispersal order. Can you describe if that's actually a legal action and how that gets communicated to those
Sure.
folks who?
So a dispersal order is anytime there's a crowd that's gathering, and usually in a roadway, to help meet one of the elements of the offense. Should anybody be charged with being in the roadway or whatever the case might be, making sure they, like any crime, making sure they understood what they were doing is wrong, and giving them a lawful order. Right. It's the same as if you're in the middle of Market Street and you're yelling and being disorderly. A police officer is not going to just go and arrest you. He or she will probably tell you, hey, quiet down, you're being disorderly. If you continue, you will be arrested. It's the same premise. In this case, as part of our Emergency Operations Center, we had several conversations with the United States Attorney's Office. The U.S. Attorney's Office, with the assistance of HSI, Homeland Security Investigations, drafted the dispersal order. We wanted to make sure that our concern was, and there was conversations with the U.S. Attorney's Office as well, about anybody that should interfere with the execution of the warrant, should actively and physically assault an agent or a police officer, how those charges could potentially be prosecuted. The U.S. Attorney's Office stated that they would review any of those such charges for potential prosecution. And because of that, we felt, and this was an ICE operation, not a local operation, that the dispersal order should come through the U.S. Attorney's Office. So they drafted the language. An agent with a loudspeaker in their vehicle pulled up in front of the home and said it 3 or 4 times. We were in the Emergency Operations Center live streaming body camera footage. We heard it very clearly. In fact, after the agent left, there's people in the crowd. There's at least one gentleman in the crowd with a megaphone who then essentially repeats to the crowd what was said. Says a few other things, but essentially repeats. So it was clear to me that dispersal order was understood, and then it even relayed through the crowd amongst people in the crowd.
Thank you. And another quick question is, the incident precipitated around the schools, and I had a question about what would be the communication process or notification process of nearby homes, businesses, other community members or organizations who might be affected by an event of this scale?
Sure.
How do you get that message out?
Right. It really depends on the situation, right? First, so in this particular case, I had a conversation with the superintendent early on before I ever, as a result of the crash. We then assigned police officers directly to the school to relay information, and I know Sergeant Greg Short, who oversees our community services unit, which is part of our school resource officer program, he was having contact with both of the principals almost hourly, even when there was no update to give them, just to ensure that we were all on the same page. We had conversations with the school about kids that walk and not letting them walk towards the direction of 337. And we had police officers there to ensure that didn't happen. We also had conversations in the Emergency Operations Center about other kind of high liability areas, places like daycare centers, any other place that we would have concern for the people that were there. But to answer your question more generally, it really depends on the situation, right? Like a person actively discharging a weapon or a bomb threat, right? Depends on the size. So we deal with public safety, immediate public safety concerns first and foremost. Then we'd make in-person notifications if it was a place that we either needed to shelter in place or evacuate. Then we do things like press notifications. We put things out on all the city pages, all the city social media platforms. In this case, we had the city public information officer with us in the command post. But we don't notify people just for the sake of notification either, right? Our focus is on the incident at hand. So there is that balance of trying to get the word out as safely as we can, but prioritizing actual public safety threats or implications first. I think in this case we did that. Our biggest concern was the school, and I think we had really good communication with the school.
And just one last comment. I had met with Jesse last week before all the reports were issued and the body cam footage and so forth. And as you indicated, Jesse, that was very difficult to watch. And I made a point of getting through as much of it as I possibly could before the meeting tonight. And, you know, without discounting the impact to the many community members and peaceful protesters who were in attendance and suffered harm there, I have to say I could not be more proud of your leadership, Chief, of Deputy Chief Briscoe's operations and performance, and of all the officers who were in attendance at that event. So thank you.
Thank you.
Did you want to go, Tim?
No, go ahead.
Okay. I actually don't have any questions. I thought the report was extremely thorough. I thought that all the links to the video footage were much appreciated. There was a lot of footage to go through, and I agree with everything that was said. I incredibly impressed with the professionalism and how well your police force conducted themselves in this, what you termed no-win situation. It was definitely an impossible situation. So I don't have any questions, because I think that all my questions have been answered. If I had any questions, they would be just minor details. And I'm looking forward to the future response strategy that's worked out. And I also want to call out the public, because when I watch that footage, I see that the public was in an impossible situation also. And unfortunately, ICE, and I'm going to say this now because I haven't had the opportunity to say this as an elected representative in this community. So I'm going to use this opportunity. I think the public was in the impossible situation of trying to prevent this organization, which now has demonstrated on numerous occasions that it can break the law with impunity. It can engage in acts of just incompetence, cruelty, illegal activities, humanitarian violations. I think the public was responding with a sense of panic that what was going on at that house potentially could have led to innocent people being dragged off to detention facilities, which now have been described by numerous scholars as concentration camps. And this is not hyperbole. This is what's going on. So I think it was an impossible situation, and I think that it's important to note that the people in the crowd were reacting to a real crisis, and there was no playbook for this for any of us, not for the police force, not for the public, and it just turned into a chaotic situation where we ended up turning on each other, even though the police were clearly there, in my opinion, to protect the public. It was, I don't know exactly the reasons, but it was presumed that they might be sympathizing with ICE, which clearly, in retrospect, they were not, in my opinion. That's my opinion. So I hope that going forward, we can look at what happened from each other's perspective and try to understand why people behaved the way they did. I certainly understand why the people in that crowd were as upset and panicked as they were about what could have happened to those folks. Thankfully, they were in Vermont, so they did not get dragged off to a detention facility in Mississippi or God knows where. And thankfully, to our police force, I believe, I'm extremely grateful that there were no deaths. No one got killed. No one got very seriously injured, although one woman did experience some injuries. Some folks did get injured, but and I also want to reiterate the expression of adhering to this mantra that we have to remain peaceful. And I understand that some folks were in a position where they felt like they were defending themselves and they had to push back. Nonetheless, I hope that we can be peaceful if this happens again, and try to understand the perspective of the police who are here to serve us and protect us, and also, acknowledge the fact that we are in an impossible situation now. So anyway, that's what I have to say about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. So I'm thankful that we have a police force and a city manager and a police chief that understood that they had to go through this really deep introspective review of all the actions that occurred on March 11th by our forces, by examining body cam footage and just making a chronological timeline, and then questioning each of the decisions along the way. A good police force does this self-examination often for incidents like this to learn what they can for the next time it happens. And I honestly hope this doesn't happen again. This is a really unique situation, but it's been experienced in other parts of the country, right? Especially in Minneapolis. You totally underscored the situation by saying that you underestimated ICE's leadership and their competence, right? And that sort of like sums up the whole situation for me. And there's no other way to explain it other than that. And our department was put in a very precarious situation with some very passionate protesters and protectors and all the other people that were there who had differing reasons for how they wanted to behave. And so the number one, objective there was to keep the public safe. And as you said, nobody was shot, and nobody was killed. There were some minor injuries, but you can't escape that with the type of activities that were going on there. So I'm pleased with this review. I just have a couple of simple questions. You complained about the batteries running out of power. I'm just curious, did the live streaming, did that drain the batteries faster?
Yeah. Two of the batteries that the body cameras that ended up dying were people that we were live streaming. That does drain the batteries faster. We kind of were unaware of that. It was the first time that as a department we used that feature for any significant reason for an extended period of time. We have already resolved the issue of batteries and we're working on buying what we need to make sure that doesn't happen again. And it's a pretty simple fix. I don't want to get too much into details and give away secrets but I'm confident that specific issue won't happen again.
Are you confident that Burlington and the Vermont State Police conducted an equal self-examination and that they will be making some changes of their own?
I have talked to both the Vermont State Police has conducted a review, and I believe you've been provided that was released to the public as well as all of their body cam footage last Friday. I have talked with the colonel several times about this, and there are things that the state police will have learned and will certainly make changes on. I have also spoken with Chief Burke over in Burlington, and although they have not released a review, their process is, as you know, a little different. They're in the process of doing that, and I'm certain, based on my conversations with Chief Burke and my interactions with him over the last 6 months, that he is a professional police chief, and he will absolutely learn from this situation and make sure that they take the appropriate steps to be better.
Great. I'm really appreciative of these sections of the report that identify areas for improvement, distinct training needs, policy needs, and recommendations for changes for future incidents. So I'm going to say that I think as unfortunate as an event that happened on March 11th, there was a lot of learning that occurred because this thing could happen again. And if it does happen again, it's great to be prepared for what happens next, right?
Sure.
And I have no idea whether ICE is going to do this kind of thing again or not. But we have to assume that they will,
right? Because
they're in charge of what they're doing. So, any other comments or questions we have? So,
I actually do have one more question. In the in the efforts to come up with I want to say an improved response. I mean, having not been able to predict what was going to happen that day, I don't know that I don't know that it could have come out any better than it did. But in the efforts to come up with a new response strategy, how do we bring the public into that? Is there a mechanism for bringing in public input as we go through that process, just to make sure that there's an understanding from the public about how they're going to behave, and a discussion with the police on what they can expect if they behave in such a manner? Do you know what I'm getting at? I know that's a really tricky question, but if if people in the public are planning on engaging in civil disobedience, it would be helpful for them to understand, well, okay, you can do that, and this is how we might respond. So that's my question. Thanks.
I don't know if there's a specific way for the public to do that. I mean, we, as police chief, it would be unethical or immoral of me, or just plain wrong, in violation of everything I stand for, to authorize or let people violate the law for any reason, right? Particularly when it's violence involved. I completely understand what people's desire, like I said, to protest the government, right? That's their First Amendment rights, and I believe as a healthy society we need to do that. But you can do that peacefully. So I guess the playbook for that is laws that are already established and that have been passed, right? There's laws that prevent people from assaulting other people. The playbook that we follow is the statutes that are already on the books, and that is what we will continue to follow. So I think people have an absolute say in what the police response is going to be by who they elect and what laws are passed, and that's the process that is established in Vermont and throughout the country. You might not always agree with the law, you might not always agree with the police, but everything we do is in the interest of public safety while upholding the statutes of the state of Vermont and our internal police department policies. So I don't want to sound like I'm not answering the question, but that truly is my philosophy and where I fall on it. We can't say because of a certain political ideology, well, if you're protesting for this reason, then it's okay. If you're protesting for this reason, then it's not okay. The police have to remain neutral, and the only way we can do that is to enforce the laws that are passed through the process that's already established through our state legislation.
Can I add to that? Agree with everything the chief says. I also think, because this was such a chaotic and emergent event, and we see emergent events all the time in the city of much less angst than this one, but still emergent events. I think what Chief Bro and Chief Burke before him both led on was you build those relationships and develop that expertise not during the chaotic event or not around the chaotic event. So I think that all the things that Chief is doing now to build up the community services unit and build relationships with community leaders and residents and go to Illuminate Vermont and go to SB Night Out and be seen and be known in the uniform, the badge, be known in the community as approachable. I think those relationships, repairing the harm of what happened on March 11th and rebuilding those relationships are what, we did see some of evidence of this in the body-worn camera where residents were more open to interacting with Burlington or South Burlington police officers because they knew them or knew the badge or had seen them at events, and continuing to build the trust that way, I think is almost more powerful than giving them an after actions report and being like, what do you think about this? Because we don't know what the next event's going to be like. And that political capital and that trust on the ground is what will let, in those moments, those conversations occur most efficiently.
So question, should we talk a little bit about our next step with migrant justice, or hear from the public first, or?
Let's hear from the public. We have two hands up. Anybody in the audience want to talk? Okay, so why don't you two come down first in the back, please? And I'm going to give you 2 minutes because we've got an agenda tonight, and please follow the directions on the little dashboard there, and identify yourself as well.
Do I press and hold or just press it?
Does it turn bright green?
My name is Ray, and I'm a South Burlington resident. On March 11th, on Dorset Street, federal agents went into the wrong house, the wrong vehicle, and went for the wrong people. The operation still went forward, and people who were not the intended target were still taken. Local police on the scene were there the entire time. The chief has said that there was nothing they could have done. That framing has been used to close discussion, but has not been matched with the neutrality that is supposed to be meant to be in practice. Because neutrality is not just being physically present. Neutrality is not simply observing an operation while it unfolds. While local police are on scene, engaged, and functioning as part of the operation environment, they are not outside of it. They are a part of how it plays out. And what happened here is the line between federal action and local non-responsibility has been drawn in a way that removes accountability for outcomes that directly affect people in this community. ICE came for one person and 3 additional people were taken who were not the target. This is not a minor administrative mistake. This is a serious breakdown with real consequences for real people. And what had followed in the public explanation is a consistent pattern: strong defensive procedure, strong emphasis on limitation, and strong validation of institutional conduct, while the impact on the community is treated as secondary, distant, or resolved simply because it's now being reviewed. That imbalance is not neutral either. It reflects whose experience is being centered. And when public concern about incident is met with dismissal and minimalization of the official settings, it reinforces a clear message about whose voice carries weight. The fair and impartial policing policy is supposed to apply to outcomes and not just intent. If it does not account for how harm occurs in practice or how community impact is weighed alongside institutional action, then it is not functioning as intended. Right now is being centered is institutional justification. What is not being centered is the community that lived through these consequences and still are. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, come on up. Are these going to be new comments that were not related to what you said earlier today?
Yes. Specifically related to this agenda.
And please identify yourself again.
Yeah, Drew Schatzer, South Burlington. I want to share my initial thoughts. I have not had a chance to review all of the footage that was released or the documents that are attached to this agenda tonight. But because there's some uncertainty around what this community task force is going to look like, I'm not sure if I'll even have an opportunity to provide any feedback in the future. So just figured I'd take advantage of this time now to share my initial thoughts based on just the first few hours of what I've seen so far. I do want to say I'm, again, very proud to be a South Burlington resident. I witnessed on multiple occasions interactions with that our local police had with community members and fellow law enforcement that did show just a level of professionalism that I think is like cream of the crop, top level. Again, this is all stuff that happened earlier in the day. And I think it's almost laughable seeing our police officers interact in the same shot with some of these federal agents who are just, clowns, like completely unprofessional, very reactive, very, anyway, it reminded me of earlier in my career. I used to do a aquatic herbicide application, and the company I worked for took professionality very seriously. They had like very precise technology that they can dose very high concentrated chemicals into large bodies of water. And they said, this makes the other guys look like a bunch of hillbillies in airboats just dumping chemicals over the side, right? And so anyway, that was just kind of what popped into my mind when I watched this. Is like our guys are really like demonstrating that professionality well. So I just wanted to say that it makes me feel happy to know that even with Chief Burke leaving last year, that we have good leadership. I will say in the area of leadership, what I did notice, the most critical feedback I have is around Deputy Chief Briscoe's behavior that day, and just again what I saw in the first few hours of the day. I work now, and I also uphold statute. I work in compliance and enforcement. I'm not trying to compare my work with what our local law enforcement do. I often know what I'm walking into, but I have had de-escalation trainings. I've had a lot of EPA trainings on how to interact with permittees, and I respond to a lot of complaints where it's usually like one neighbor saying another neighbor did something. There could be hot heads. I often have to give bad news. So just there was things that came up that I thought in the training that I've had, I would have been trained to act differently or carry myself differently than what I saw in Deputy Chief Briscoe. So to just summarize by saying, I don't know if maybe that was the best role for him that day. And again, hindsight's 2020. I'm not saying, that he needs to be, be fired or anything, but if or when this kind of thing happens again, I think just from what I saw so far, there were maybe other people in our police force that maybe would have conducted themselves more professionally in that leadership role than he did. So I would ask you all to consider that in the future of who's going to be that point person in the field.
Let's wrap it up because we're over 3 minutes now.
I'm just getting started, and we have a pretty empty
I know
room.
we've got 3 people online with their hands up now. We have a very
I
long
understand,
agenda.
but you guys have made it clear that you're not going to allow the community to participate openly in this community task force discussion, and I'd like to get this feedback out to Chief Bro because
You're doing that now.
yeah. So I
Can you
ask
sum it
that
up?
you just
'Cause
give me a few more minutes, please. That just took another 30 seconds, but so anyway, some of this behavior was disparaging remarks against protesters by Deputy Chief. It wasn't clear that he was talking about our specific community members that day, but he was definitely painting protesters from his past experience in a bad light, both with our community members and with fellow law enforcement. I thought that was completely unprofessional. He selectively would share information. There were people in identifying vests there, also charged with community safety, trying to do the best work they could. And
Lou, do you want to put all these comments in an email to us instead?
I'll be quick. So, but he would quickly, or he would dismiss those people and say, "I'm just waiting. I know what you guys know. I don't have any information to share." And a second later, he would talk to a fellow law enforcement officer and give much different information. So that selective sharing of information was not okay. But the pinnacle here was just that he said multiple times throughout the day that he'd basically rather be somewhere else. This is my retirement job. I shouldn't have to deal with this, is the vibe I got from that. And that is not the person I think that should be running the show on the street when things like this are happening. And I apologize he had a hard day that day, or I can sympathize that he had a hard day, but that is not the professionality that I expect from our people.
So, Drew, I just want to interject to say I'm the one who's accountable for staff action in the city, not the council. They're accountable for policy making. So if you would like to ever talk to me about the specific behavior or professionalism of anybody on my staff, I'm happy to meet with you and have that conversation. Maligning them in public, I'm not sure is going to serve that purpose in the same way.
All right, then I'll just wrap that up with my feedback about him. I just want to address what Councilor Zygmunt said about the impossible situation that we're in. I understand, the chief's remarks about not wanting to talk about like ideology, but the confines of the law, like what they are legally allowed to do. Just, I know this has been brought up before. Slavery was once legal. Terrible things happened under the frame of within the law. The Holocaust was largely carried out through legal framework at the time. So many of us like to ask ourselves, like, what we would have done if we were in those situations, if we could have helped someone, if we could have been in the Underground Railroad, or prevented people from going to concentration camps. And we're really at that time now where we don't have to imagine it anymore. We can do differently, even if the law tells us like that. Oh no, they have the authority to do that. And I've spoken before about how we need to let this shake out in the courts afterwards. But that is, again, echoing Councilor Zygmunt, like coming from a place of privilege. Because yeah, for me, if a law enforcement officer is violating my rights and I go to jail or whatever, it's an inconvenience for me. But for a lot of these vulnerable people, they could end up in a place they've never been to before and have no idea where they are, like deported to a country they've never been. They could be dead, raped, worse in these concentration camps. So we need to start thinking about working outside of that narrow framework of the law.
Thank you, Drew. We're going to go to 2 people on the line, 3 people on the line now. So Sherry, can you hear us?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, and I'm going to start you with 2 minutes.
Okay. Turning off my speaker. So I want to know if any of you opened an email this weekend that you got that said evidence of police collusion or evidence of collusion with ICE and police violence. I know you got that email because I sent it to you. There are many community members that worked very, very hard and watched hundreds of hours of footage that documented pretty much all of the collusion and violence from South Burlington, Burlington, and state police. So I'm sorry that you didn't watch the 60 hours of footage that was released. We haven't either, but we have watched hundreds of hours. And I'm wondering if any of you have even opened that and saw the slideshow that was a part of that. I'm also wondering why you are saying that there was no violence when there's clear footage of violence.
Sherry, where are you from, please?
No answer. Okay, I will continue because I feel like this has not been handled very well. And I am sorry that you feel that this should be brushed under the rug. And should never be brushed under the rug. This is not okay the way that this has been handled in any way. I encourage you to watch that slideshow and to see if you still feel that there was no violence that the South Burlington police instilled on the community members. When they did nothing to take care of that family, they just colluded with ICE and gave them their VIP treatment. So I encourage you to really look outside of just the body cam footage, because that's pretty much what they want you to see and not really what happened. Thank you for your time, and I hope you'll watch that slideshow.
Thank you, Sherry. Who's next? Leaf? Leaf?
Hello?
Hi, Leaf. Where are you from?
I'm from Burlington.
Okay, Burlington. Go ahead, please.
Hi, I'm Leaf. I am a professional de-escalation and nonviolence trainer. I also worked on the slideshow that Sherry mentioned with several others. We've gone through cumulatively over 1,000 hours of video footage. This was before we had access to the body cam footage, so we're just starting to comb that now. Through this work, we found a lot of evidence of South Burlington Police collaboration with ICE, failure to intervene in instances of excessive force, assisting ICE in use of excessive force, many clear violations of the fair and impartial policing policy. And I know you mentioned that you haven't received many complaints. Well, get ready, because now people have access to a lot more footage. So I wouldn't say that the lack of complaints so far really means anything other than that people are still trying to figure out what's going on. So I really would love to show more than we can in 2 minutes of this evidence to you all. So if any of you would like to look through it with us, let me know. I also wanted to say that this idea that no one was shot cannot be the standard for something going well. That is ludicrous. In the footage I watched, have seen multiple instances of ICE agents with their hands on firearms or pointing other weaponry at civilians with no local police in sight. So the idea that local police are the reason people didn't die is just laughable. I also wanted to mention this idea that, we work it out in the courts afterwards and everything went well, people are home. that was minutes away from not being the case. I also co-run the Vermont ICE Detainee Tracker, where we keep track of all the ICE detainees in Vermont prisons. And I woke up the morning after the 11th to a text that Camilla and Johanna had disappeared. They were not in the DOC locator anymore. I spent the next probably about 12 hours trying to figure out where they were. What had happened is that ICE removed them from the local prison, drove them across the border to New Hampshire, drove them to Massachusetts.
What happened with the South Bend
Yes,
police in this
right.
meeting
So what
right
I'm
now?
trying to say though is this idea that, oh, we can just let ICE do whatever we want and the courts will figure it out later is not true, because ICE is illegally trafficking people across state lines against court orders. So when the police stand by and say, oh, they're federal agents, they can do whatever they want, the courts will work it out, they are specifically moving people out of court jurisdictions so that they can smuggle them out of New England, out of Vermont to concentration camps. So that was minutes away from happening. And so I wanted you to know this, because we have this idea of like, oh, the courts are, protecting people. That's because, we have people monitoring it, but it's really almost not the case. I wanted to say that it's just a really creative interpretation of law and policy that the police have presented to you all in this document. It's fascinating to me how, in certain situations, the police are very clearly extending their power further than they can, like taking very clear violations of the Fair and Impartial Policing Act and saying, oh, this is fine, this is within our power. And in other situations, they're really underestimating the amount of authority they have and saying, oh, we can't intervene to uphold the laws that we do have authority to uphold. So I just want you to take the legal briefing that the police have given you with a big grain of salt. There's this idea that police can't, stop federal agents. And I want to quote back what the police chief said, which was, okay, I'm almost done. We cannot let people violate the law for any reason, especially when there is violence involved. So I just want to know, like, are ICE people? Because I did not see the local police intervening to stop ICE from violating the law. I did not see them intervene to stop the Vermont State Police from violating the statute against chokeholds. So
Okay, leave.
there's a lot of examples that people have of the way things could have gone
We're gonna
better
move
that
on
day.
to somebody else now, because you've gone over
Okay.
4.5 minutes. Okay, but thank you for your comment. I appreciate it. Let's go to Seamus. Seamus, can you hear us?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yep. Where are you from?
Thanks. My name is Seamus Absher. I'm a South Burlington resident, and this is my personal opinion. All the evidence that I've seen shows that South Burlington police did their duty. Thank you to all the officers. You have important and difficult jobs. To everybody else, if you have a disagreement with ICE or current immigration policy, you can't solve that by protesting and then complaining about how you got shoved to the ground or disrespected. There's no cosmic judge who's going to rule in your favor. Instead, what's needed is effective political action. Effective means convincing people who don't already agree with you. Staying totally nonviolent helps. Speaking out and making political mistakes in public so you can find a voice that is effective with voters. Raising money for political campaigns. Focusing on winning elections. Again, the goal is to convince people who don't already agree with you. Nobody gets to just impose their personal morality or ethics. That's not democracy. Politics is a game we play because it's an alternative to violence. You have to build consent before you change policy. In other words, play the long game. Focus on winning at the ballot box. And like I teach my daughters, when you see a South Burlington police officer, wave and say hi, because they're here to protect our bodies while we use our political voices. Thank you.
Thank you, Seamus. Let's take somebody in the audience now, please.
Michael Mittag, I'm a South Burlington resident. On March the 11th, I was 9,000 miles away from here. I didn't get back until 2 weeks later. And I've been a bit busy since then. So I wanted to ask our chief here whether there was any violence for which there was probable cause for an arrest.
So make sure you direct questions to the city
Fine.
manager.
That was a question.
Yeah.
And the other question was whether the protests could be characterized as passive resistance. That's why I asked the first question. Passive resistance means, you don't fight with people, you don't argue with the police, you let them do their job, and which apparently they've done superbly. And if they want to get you out of the way, they can pick you up and carry you away. That's passive resistance. I've done a lot of it in my life. I've only been charged with nightsticks once, and only been arrested once. So it's a good record. Thank you. And thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Ryan Doyle, South Burlington. There have been a few big situations in our neighborhood over here in the past few years, including twice having escaped convicts running through our neighborhood. One day, an officer with a large gun told me to go back inside my house, and that was the form of communication that there was a murderer loose in our neighborhood. A few months ago, though, you as a council made a really excellent decision, which was to opt into VT alerts, which is a great system. I get messages from VT alerts daily, but I'm not sure I've gotten one from South Burlington yet, and I didn't get one on March 11th. So I think the question was asked by somebody about like how could communication go into the community better potentially, and when I think about particularly the impact on my neighborhood there, how much nicer it is to get an alert on the phone from a trusted emergency communication line rather than from Facebook or Reddit or by walking out my front door and seeing guns. So please, not just in these extreme cases, but I would really ask the city to start utilizing that feature more. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. We have Lisa Yankowski online. Lisa, do you want to make a comment?
Thank you. This is actually a reply and a comment to back up Jesse and the chief about trying to involve the public in procedures and what to do if something like this happens again. I agree with both of them. It's very hard if you're trying to involve others. Unfortunately, their opinions and their self-importance and other things get involved with how they think. And I'm saying this from experience. I appreciate our police force. I appreciate what you guys all do. This is something that's very hard. Just so our newest counselor, Sigmund, knows, I live next to Red Rocks Park. I help oversee it for the city. I'm always tangling with residents from other towns who come down here, think they can do whatever they want because they think we're part of Burlington. So that's some of the things that any task force or committee would be up against, is people thinking they can do whatever they want, whether they live in the town or not. I do agree that with our police department and members being at city events, I appreciate that. I love talking with all of them. I've sent them home with cookies and stuff before when I know they've had to go through not very nice situations down here, which did unfortunately involve death and stuff of people going off the cliffs, which they're not supposed to do.
Lisa, Lisa, can we kind of stick to what happened on 311?
Yep.
And
So it
you're
is.
you're at 2 minutes now.
It is in regards to that if you do put together a task force and you do want members of the public, it can be very tough, and I just wanted to put that input in.
Thank you, Lisa. And nobody else in the audience wants to make a comment? Nobody else online? Any final comments by the council at all? You wanted to talk about?
Yeah, so I appreciate that Will Lambeck replied to your outreach, Jesse, and it sounds like they're open to participating.
Thank you, Chief.
Looking forward to talking more. He'd like some feedback on us on the parameters of the meeting, the format of the meeting. He wants to make sure we start with accountability. Asked whether the chief would be there, so I'd love to discuss those questions and see if we can all agree on some answers to those questions and kind of move forward with responding to Will, Migrant Justice, and hopefully setting up a discussion with them. So I'll throw out, Beth and I actually chatted a bit, and I think we agree that it'd be helpful to have kind of a neutral person there facilitating, moderating discussion so that Migrant Justice doesn't feel that the person in that role is biased. So I don't know, it'd be great, I think, at least, I don't know if others agree, to identify somebody like that. I think that would kind of be a first step, would maybe make folks more comfortable about how that meeting would go if we were able to structure it that way. Then in terms of like the actual discussions, it'd be, people would take turns first speaking their mind, right? What they want to say, and then presumably we'd open it up and have a frank, question and answer back and forth, moderated, facilitated, so that things stay, hopefully as calm and, civil as they can be, and I don't know, take it from there.
Yeah, as Andrew said, we talked a little bit about this, and I totally agree with that. I think that if we're going to move forward with this, it has to be completely balanced. We are not. I don't think that we can be the ones, quote, running the meeting. It has to be an open, fair discussion where everyone feels heard, and we can try to, if not agree with each other on everything, because I'm sure that those of us sitting at this desk don't completely agree with each other about all these issues. At least we can try to see it from each other's perspective. I would hope that would be one of the goals. And then also maybe talk about what we do next time if this happens again. In other words, I think it would be helpful to come to an understanding of what we're trying to achieve from having this type of forum for discussion. And also pose the question of how do we find, a person with the skills to facilitate a discussion like this. I don't know how we identify said person, and maybe you have some ideas, Jesse. I don't really have a clue. So anyway. And I'm sorry that I have to say this too. I'm sorry that we're having this discussion without Laurie Smith, because I know that he would want to be part of this. So I regret that he's not here, but I'm sure he would also agree that we need to move forward. We can't delay another couple of weeks.
So I know that Chief left the table, but I might invite him back down. I think it's interesting to have a warned council meeting, public forum with one or three representatives from one organization. And I guess I question what the outcome of that would be. Would that really be the kind of community feedback you all are looking for, or community repair you all are looking for? We work with community partners all the time, and would a conversation like that be better suited not on camera, with all due respect to our neighbors, but in a place where folks feel more vulnerable to have those open conversations, I think, where that you guys are interested in having. So I guess I would throw out there, what is your overall goal of this, a publicly warned meeting like this, and is it the right tool to achieve that goal? I work for you. I will do what you would like, but I don't, in that correspondence back from Migrant Justice, and I've worked with Will for years as a manager. I didn't hear a whole lot of shared understanding of what happened or what we would want to happen next. And I think the chief and I are both interested in developing that with Migrant Justice, but I'm not sure a warned council meeting is the right first step.
Tim,
Tend to agree with that.
yeah, can I make a quick comment? I'm certainly supportive of having a conversation. I know I took a look at the response from Will Lambeck, and as you said, Jesse, I'm not sure if there's conditions put on initial conversations. I don't think that moves the ball forward. So I do think would propose an alternative where there might be delegates from city council, but from a facilitation standpoint, I did wonder whether or not restorative justice would play a role in a facilitated conversation. And I do not think that initial conversation, or potentially a series of conversations, should be in public to start, because I do think based on some of the conditions that were referenced, I don't think there's even a start on the same page right now. So I think that opportunity to establish that, if it's possible, kind of a common baseline off of which there could be some understanding going forward. And I think that's better done with the delegates from council and in a non-public scenario to start.
Dialogue is really the important word here, and to initiate that is important. And so I think the most expeditious way to do it and to have the parties want to come together is not in a public meeting. So that's what I would say.
Jesse, do you feel like restorative justice would have the skill sets that we're talking about in terms of facilitation?
I mean, yes, I think the restorative justice practitioners generally have a huge wealth of knowledge in facilitating these kinds of conversations. I think a challenge may be that, we are in the last months of our CJC and going to another CJC, and both of those CJCs are in partnership with police. So if we were to look at that, I might recommend we look for a restorative justice practitioner who's outside of our county. I think that is a good suggestion.
So, Tim or Elizabeth, is your because I think this conversation needs to happen. I mean, I think it's long overdue, right? I mean, I'm almost minded just to reach out to Will and just sit down and have a coffee, right? And I might well do that, but is your thought that, say, two of us would be formally nominated to sit down with someone from restorative justice and migrant justice and have a conversation? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, along those lines.
Okay.
And the chief.
And the chief.
Yeah. And city manager. Does that sound good?
Or so, those who are interested, I mean, it might have to happen over a couple of conversations. I would think we have to be respectful of the chief's time and Jesse's time as well. Just to throw that out there. I don't know what the best way to do this is. I mean, we're just making this up as we go. So, just a word about, the fact that this will impact the chief's ability to do his other job, his actual day-to-day work, and same for Jesse. So I don't know. I mean, I would be happy to defer to others if they're interested in having that conversation. I would be willing to participate. I'm definitely interested in participating. I know Lori is, and clearly you are too, Andrew. Haven't gotten a good sense of whether you, Elizabeth and Tim, would want to be part of it. But that still creates a problem because there are at least three who would like to participate. So any thoughts on that? I'm at a loss.
Lori's not here.
Yeah,
But
in terms of next steps, I mean, Beth, to answer that question, I would certainly be willing to participate as well. I wonder if it would make sense, Jesse, to reach out to Will and just propose that we're looking at 2 council delegates, potentially the chief and yourself, and looking at a restorative justice facilitator outside of our city as a venue, and just see what the response is to that.
I agree. Sound good?
So we're thinking 2 people, and the other 3 can just sort of
We'll have to draw
wait for next steps.
We'll figure it out.
Okay. Okay. All right.
I mean, the
Thanks.
highest bidder, right? Good. All right. Well, that was a good discussion, good review, and I appreciate everybody's input. So let's move on to item 8. Did you want to take a break before we get into this? Or do you want to wait till?
No, let's end on the next
Huh?
note. Let's end on the next note.
Okay.
Unless somebody really needs a break, and
Okay.
that's fine.
Item 8 is award the construction contract for the east-west alternative transportation crossing, the South Burlington RAIZ or RAISE 1 project, Phase 1 project to Engineers Construction Incorporated, ECI, contingent on issuance of a zoning permit for 861 Williston Road, and authorize the city manager to negotiate, execute, and amend the construction contract consistent with the supporting documents. Alana Blanchard, Community Development Director. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Chair Barrett. For the record, Alana Blanchard, Community Development Director. So I am very excited to bring to you tonight a recommendation to award a contract to Engineer Construction for the construction of Phase 1 of the walk-bike bridge over I-89 at Exit 14. This phase of the project is the bridge. It also connects via 14-foot shared use path and then 14-foot ramps that go up to the bridge, as well as a 10-foot shared use path that connects to the sidewalk on Williston Road, just beside Staples Plaza, and then on the east side connects to the CVS. And then the third connection point is to the University Mall property. So this is Phase 1, and we received 3 bids for Phase 1. The lowest bidder was ECI Construction. And then the other 2 bids were much tighter than the last time, so about $2 million apart for each of them, $2 million more. The bids have been analyzed, and all of the amounts that were substantially higher than was estimated have been looked at, and to make sure that we didn't misjudge the quantity and that they had maybe saw something we didn't, but overall the analysis checked out, and we're satisfied with the bid in that it will result in a project for the estimated amount. So along with, we do have a contingency as part of the owner's budget, but in general, we would recommend the award of the contract to Engineers Construction.
Huge milestone.
Huge milestone. I just also mentioned that this enables us to be under construction this summer, which enables us to leverage the $20 million of federal funds fully into the project.
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm trying to imagine how this thing gets built. And so
Yes.
would I be correct in imagining that they would have to shunt one lane of northbound over to south and then vice versa as they build each half of it?
So the construction is actually much quicker than that. So it will occur over several shutdowns, evening shutdowns. So they would shut down the northbound or the southbound lanes, and traffic would be diverted through Williston, South Burlington,
Oh.
and Winooski. So during the period of
they
the
would divert.
construction.
And that was at night, you said?
That would be at night, and it would be one side at a time,
Yeah,
so not
yeah.
not both sides
Right,
at
right,
the same
right.
time.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So no lane diversions at the construction site itself.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
could be a little traffic at night in
Little
those
traffic.
areas. Bad. And no one's out anyway, so.
But
Okay.
yeah.
Anything else you want to add? Anybody else want to add? We have need a motion to approve this?
Oh, can I ask a
Go
really
ahead.
quick question?
Go ahead.
What's the projected timeline for the whole project?
Yes, so the contract completion date is October 2028.
That's for phase one?
That's for phase one, and we're applying for funding now so that phase two can be contiguous with phase one. Ideally. Fingers crossed.
And the zoning permit is for the Staples Plaza to build the what's the word I want? Enclosures for
Stormwater.
for stormwater?
Oh, sorry,
no.
for the dumpsters.
Dumpsters.
Yes.
Right,
So the zoning permit so the agreement that was on the consent agenda would enable us to pull the permit that's required in order to award the contract. And that zoning permit is for improvements that we're making as part of the bridge project. But in order for the zoning permit to be issued, we need to bring the project into the site, not our site, but the Staples Plaza site, into compliance with the zoning ordinance.
Okay, so is City Council ready for a motion to green light for this?
I move to award the construction contract for the East-West Alternative Transportation Crossing South Burlington Phase 1 Project Phase 1 to Engineers Construction, contingent on issuance of a zoning permit for 861 Williston Road, and authorize the city manager to negotiate, execute, and amend the construction contract consistent with the supporting documents.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
I do
Oh,
have
go
one
ahead.
quick thing. I just want to make sure, and I'll bring this up in terms of when we meet for policy priorities and strategies, is there is a funding gap on this, and Alana's done a great job highlighting the value engineering of the first phase and the efforts to close that funding gap through a number of different means. I just want to make sure we continue to keep that out in front of the public and at the top of our minds in terms of other priorities that we might be considering funding for, to make sure that this can be executed without undue burden on taxpayers. Thank you, Alana, for the hard work.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Good. Just for the public, Alana, can you do a minute on what grants you have submitted in the last month and
Sure.
other big news?
Sure. In February, we applied for the BUILD grant, which is the current version of the RAISE grant, which was the first grant that we received for the project. And then we also applied for congressional discretionary spending. So we applied to Representative Balance Office for 2 different grants, and then also to Senator Welch's office for a 3rd grant. We did hear back from Welch that they were they were not interested in the proposal that we submitted, but then Balance Office said, do a further proposal for the phase 2 of this project. And then we also prepared a grant and submitted it for the Northern Borders Regional Commission. And so that was put in on Friday. And then on the same day, we also received notice from Representative Balance Office that our request to that office had been forwarded to the Committee on Appropriations. So it's in Congress. So we'll see what happens. But that was a nice thing to hear on Friday. So
Alana's doing a great job of grant writing.
Can I ask one more question? I know, and this is going to sound really like a very naive question because it is. What happens if you don't fill the gap?
yeah, so if we if we don't, we do have not several years, but we do have some time to apply for grants next year also. But it's obviously much better for the project to have the funding all in place this year. But if we do not fill the gap during discussions with the council over the winter, the council did agree that funds could be reappropriated from other TIF district projects, specifically the Garden Street project, which is the second phase or the third phase of the part that is along Williston Road, which is the last phase of the Garden Street project, and from the reserve funds. That doesn't mean that would need to be the funds that are reallocated, but those are the ones that we have proposed to VTrans in order for them to allow us to put this project out to bid.
Are you ready for the vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It is unanimous, and we've given the green light to award a contract for the construction of the East-West Alternative Transportation Crossing. Thank you very much for all your hard work.
Congratulations,
Thank
Lana.
you.
Thank you.
So let's get those shovels out. Where are they? Are going to be gold shovels?
I think they're around.
Where the dig be? Over at Staples or over at CVS? Where do you start?
Staples, probably.
Okay, yeah. Great. All right, thank you very much. We are going to take a quick break for 5 minutes. Thank you. Well, 4 out of 5 counselors are here, and the city manager is here, and before us are 2 other agenda item people. Let's go to item 9, which is receive an update on the government operations implementation plan of the climate action plan with Bettina McGrez, the climate action manager, and Lou Brzee, the assistant climate action manager. Or what is your title?
Brzee, Energy Project Manager.
Energy project manager. Okay.
I'm Bettina Migas, Climate Action Manager. Good evening. Thank you for having us. We're going to do a quick overview of the status of the government operations, the emissions tracking, and some of the projects. As you know, there were several items in the agenda that folks, I welcome everyone in the audience to review that are attached to the agenda that go a little bit deeper. I only have, I think, 7 slides here that we're going to go through, so I welcome your questions as well. So to begin, so what you see in this graph here is kind of the historical trends, like what we're tracking, you know, calling it historical is a kind of a little bit crazy because it's only 6 years or 7 years, but we're looking at the calendar year 2019, 2023, 2024, and 2025, and our emissions by different sources. And what we see is that there's slight variation year over year, but a decrease in pretty significant decrease in natural gas use in the 2023-2024 year. Year is probably related to milder winters, and that went up this year. So overall, I know that the CCRPC was here in February and was telling you we had a 12% decrease, but that was for calendar year 2024. If we look at what we have in calendar year 2025, we're looking at a 9% decrease. So really, it does depend on how we're looking, and the decrease has not been as significant as we would like. Anything to add on that one?
No, I think the 25 increase is cold weather. It was a miserable winter for heating bills.
Yeah, and it is encouraging to see the gasoline go down because it had gone up, and now it's going down.
Bettina, the 9%, none of that relates, or does it relate to the fact that the feed from GMP electricity feed is getting more carbon-free, or does it assume the same for 19 and 25 in terms of the carbon emissions from electricity?
No, it does include the decrease because of.
So was the 9% then mostly attributable to GMP, or
there is some decrease in others as well, but yes, most of it.
Most of it was just that GMP got cleaner.
Well, about 40% of it, I think. The 2 other big ones were, one, this building, so we moved out of 575. And we also moved out of the library being over at the mall. So we reduced natural gas for both of those things. I think between the 3 of those factors, it accounts for like 90% of it.
Yep. Some of the municipal accomplishments in 2025, we went from 0 to 6 all electric vehicles. We also added 6 new ports of level 2 charging at Airport Parkway, at Fire Station 1, and at Public Works. We have new efficient boilers at the police department. That there's that appendix, can't remember what letter, appendix B details. And we also could tell that there was a reduction in fuel use because of the reduction in number of trips by the fire trucks. And I think that's something that Chief Locke has mentioned before. So that's the policy of under certain conditions, sending the ambulance and not sending ambulance and fire trucks on certain calls.
A quick look indicated that with some vehicles that was as much as a 30% reduction in the fuel use on a month-by-month basis. So it's a lot of benefit to doing that.
Let's see.
How are the EVs performing?
Pardon me?
How are the EVs performing?
Everybody likes them. There've been some bumps along the road, and I think we're straightening them out. There's people in this room in lots of places who can give you stories, but I think we're getting through that.
Good.
Yeah, and the idea is that at the end of this fiscal year, we'll track the mileage for all of these vehicles and see how their use has been.
How many oil changes have you had to do?
No oil changes. So going a little bit deeper, maybe Lou, do you want to take this one? There's a lot of the work that Lou does tracking.
We started playing around with graphs getting ready for this, and all of a sudden, when we saw the pie chart, it was like, oh, isn't that interesting? And the real thing that you come to grips with real fast is that there's only 3 places that are generating greenhouse gases for us. And they're natural gas, gasoline, and diesel fuel. And particularly for this graph, we wanted to break out what the digester at Airport Parkway contributes to the cause of the whole thing. And when you do that, it comes up, it looks like 25, 25, 25, but the actual numbers are so close to that. I think the lowest one is 23.7 or something like that. It's ridiculous. So the numbers up there to look at, both in terms of gallons and so forth, or green gas, tons of emission.
It's just a handy way to remember what it is that we're dealing with. So we figured it was a good visual aid.
Let me add one other thing. 5 years ago, when we started this, we did a lot of concentration on looking at things by department. And it makes, I think, a lot more sense now to talk about where the gases are coming from and not worry about the department things. If we want to get rid of gasoline, we got to get rid of cars, and some of them we come here and some from there. So in our thinking, we've kind of made that switch.
So I see you show 2030 down at the bottom that we won't be using any gasoline. Is the thought that by 2030 we'll have a completely electric fleet?
So we'll get to that at the end. That's not quite what we're saying, but we'll get to that at the end.
Okay.
So some of the potential actions that we can take to reduce natural gas use. So in this case, we're talking about perhaps being able to do some moderate improvements in the digester gas consumption. We're going ahead and patching up the insulation and repainting it. We're going to paint it black and see if that's going to give us some improvement, any improvement really. I mean, we don't have a lot of levers to pull with the digester, and therefore we feel that any potential improvement can be helpful. And then for buildings, or any other HVAC systems, is really at the end of their current life, replace them with electric heat pumps. So that's
Why
That's
does
the plan.
wastewater take so much more? What?
Pardon me?
Wastewater? Oh, there are other processes in the wastewater treatment that are currently using natural gas that potentially we could
That
switch
are
to
not,
electric.
so not digester, but they do like what they heat some.
Well, for instance, at Airport Parkway, we have 5 different gas bills. Plus, then again, there's Bartlett Bay. In addition to that, meters, I should say, related primarily to heating the different buildings that are there.
It's heating for buildings.
Yeah.
So there are more buildings with wastewater than there are, or
The
proportionally
square
more-
footage is
Square
a lot.
footage, okay.
Yes,
Oh,
it's a lot higher. Is that what you mean?
Okay.
I mean, the dewatering building over there is a very large facility.
Yeah.
That big circular building.
Yeah.
And
Do you have a way to normalize? Say again?
Our wastewater treatment plants are by far our most expensive asset.
Okay, right.
You will see it on your tour.
Is there a way to normalize natural gas usage for heating by degree days so you know whether you're seeing a?
Oh, definitely. And as a matter of fact, we worked that pretty hard to make sure we were getting the results we thought we were getting at the police station. Yes, if we get degree days, they show up on the bill.
Yeah.
So we keep track of that and
Okay.
can function that way, yes.
Was that true? I know I asked this question, but normalizing for per capita and roadways, those were some of the variables that had been listed in the report. Are they material or not, or does it make sense to do that?
We have not done any work in that regard quantitatively, but we have asked ourselves the same question that you asked. The population's increase. I've asked Maddie to get us what the employment figures, for instance. We have a lot more people on staff now than we did before, and put together a list of those factors and see if any of them relate to what we're seeing. It's going to take us a little while to do that, but we're thinking about it.
So I know we're going to continue the conversation on Bartlett Bay wastewater another time, but are any of the improvements that we're contemplating in that renovation, will those address some of the natural gas usage that we're seeing here?
So I think the Bartlett Bay is responsible for about 33 metric tons of CO2 per year.
No.
So maybe that's 10% of buildings, right? The buildings are about 330. Natural gas is 330, leaving out the digester, so it's like a 10%. It would be a 10% decrease.
10% of the 25 or 10% of the whole pie?
10% of a 25.
10% of 25. So most of it is Airport Parkway, most of that 25.
Yes.
Okay.
For gasoline and diesel vehicles, gasoline, we think that replacement of light duty gasoline vehicles with electric at their end of life is fairly straightforward. We know that in a few cases we're not quite there yet with meeting requirements, particularly for like the police patrol vehicles, but pretty much every other application we are there. In the case of diesel is a little bit more complicated. And so what we're suggesting, we're really evaluating at this point, is the feasibility of switching to a cleaner diesel fuel. And that would be cleaner in the sense of lower emissions from this fuel. And we're looking at, this is a fuel that's been used in ski areas in the Western United States. There's some places in Boston that use it, New York. And so this could be one way of decreasing the footprint of our diesel use, and kind of in the shorter term until we have better technology. We're hoping that technology will save us in the diesel area.
Are there electric options for some of the heavy duty? Like I mean, I just like read an article like China's switching all their trucks electric, and you see all this information, news from Europe, Norway, etc., where they're running big machinery now, on batteries. And is that technology just not here yet in the U.S.?
That's right. Like for example, plowing trucks. I've seen, in Norway and other places, I've seen big plowing trucks, but they're not available here electrically.
There are some applications where there may be a candidate available when the time comes to look at replacing that vehicle. Two candidates that have been looked at with some degree are both street sweepers and the tank truck that runs down to Bartlett Bay, because the routes are predetermined, the usage is predetermined. It makes it easy to work with. But we just recently purchased new vehicles of both of those kinds, so their life is down the road several years. They exist, but are we in a? If you're New York City, you can go buy 10, and if you have a problem, it doesn't wreck the city, kind of thing. So we're watching it very closely.
Is the pie chart of vehicles by department, is that the light duty vehicles or all vehicles?
So we have the gasoline vehicles is all gasoline vehicles up on the upper right. And the diesel vehicles are all diesel vehicles. I mean, those are all heavy duty. The diesel are all heavy duty, basically.
Do you know how many of each of those numbers is a light vehicle? Like
in the gasoline?
Well, I'm trying to work offline. I'm guessing it's like 40, 45. You got all the police vehicles, and Public Works has a good 10 F-150.
Yeah. Okay.
150, 250 trucks kind of thing.
Okay. And the cleaner diesel fuels is actually renewable diesel. Is that what it is?
It's renewable, but it's not. Renewable is a subset of biodiesel.
Yeah.
It's what's called renewable, advertised, and apparently everybody's getting a 65% reduction in greenhouse gases when they use it.
Is there any in Burlington area that we can get yet?
That's what we're trying to do, is get a group of people together to generate a volume big enough to get somebody to bring it into the area.
Would we have to modify our equipment to use it?
Just pour it in. The guys in the ski area, that question came up in one of the big webinars, and the guy's answer was, the drivers don't even know.
Okay. So we can use existing diesel tanks that we have to store it, right?
Could, yes. Yeah. If we went all the way.
Yeah. All right.
A lot of work to be done, but there's a big gain if you get there.
Yeah.
Sorry. There you go. So this is kind of summarizing, looking at the potential actions that we can take and what kind of emission reduction we could get from each of those fuel sources by going down that path. And then the reduction time frame is really, it's not just technology, but it's also reaching that end of life, right? So we want to be good stewards of taxpayer money. And so we're not at this point advocating for replacing until it's time to get replaced for a particular reason. And so that's why a lot of those timeframes kind of extend a little bit. But if we put all of those reductions together, they would be about a 48% decrease from the 2019 baseline. So we would be falling short a little bit. The 2030 goal pie chart that is depicted there is what we really wanted to get to by 2030, which we were assuming we would be able to phase out all gasoline vehicles by then and get to that 60% reduction. So the original, the 2025 whole pie, I guess, is representative of the, what is it, 1297? 1,297 metric tons. And so the future path is 48% from that. The 2030 whole pie chart is a 60% reduction for that visually in terms of area.
Look, I think if we can cut our greenhouse gas emissions in half in a decade, it's not quite the aspiration that we were hoping for in the plan, but we'd all be really proud of that.
It's not going to be easy to do, but there's some paths to begin to get there.
So we've already heard from the fire department that they've changed their behavior, right? So they're supposedly going to use less diesel. I mean, unless the number of calls goes way up, right? But are there other small behavior changes that departments can make to?
Well, let's go back 2 years ago that we opened up use of the gas stations on Shelburne Road, so they didn't have to come all the way across town.
That too, yeah.
And
yeah.
we saw a difference from that and so forth. And you never know when another good idea pops up. In particular, the fire crews are very much aware that the ladder truck is very expensive to drive down the road. So if you have a choice to send an engine, regular engine, or the fire or the ladder truck, it's almost 2 to 1.
Mm-hmm.
Is there potentially some more opportunity in our wastewater buildings to, say, tap into geothermal for heating? If the buildings are so big, there may be scale there to do something like that.
If we talked about heat pumps for Airport Parkway, one of the buildings in particular would be perfect to do exactly what we're planning to do on Bartlett Bay, in terms of using the water that's going out and make it work that way. We've looked at the others. Getting a water source near the building is difficult. Drilling for geothermal, there's not enough payback.
At least at this point.
Yeah.
There's still a 30% credit, right? I'm not remembering if the city still can get that, but right, geothermal is one of the things that there's still a credit for.
We would have to move pretty fast on that. I don't think we're ready to. I mean, we can't just go and drill a hole, right?
We can't.
I'm just saying that we can't move that fast to take advantage of that. Like, we don't have studies.
No, I'm not. So, because you're saying there's a time constraint on that,
right? For the tax credit, if that's what you meant.
The geothermal credit.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm just I know there's a credit for homeowners that's like in place for it's semi-permanent, but for the cities, wouldn't it be?
I'm pretty sure it's not. I mean, I can double check. I think, I'm very interested in tapping either geothermal or thermal energy networks. It might not be the right place for it, but, we are open to exploring a lot of possibilities. And that's what we have in our CIP as well for the energy fund. We have money set aside to do studies precisely because we don't know what we don't know, and we don't know what potential things could appear. So the idea is to be prepared to jump on something like that if we could.
What about sewer thermal? I mean, there's a huge volume of water that comes through that place, right? And it's at some constant temperature. I know you don't want to deviate for certain, reactions that you're doing, either, aerobic or anaerobic, but that it's the same concept, right? Is having a constant heat source, right? It's either 50 degrees that's
right.
7 feet below the ground, right? Or it's a huge tank filled with 1 million gallons that's just sitting there, clarifying.
So that's the concept for the Bartlett Bay, is to basically use the heat from the sewage to heat the buildings.
I just coined that term, sewer thermal, just so you know.
Well, and both of the applications that we've talked in the last 5 minutes can talk about getting the heat out of the fluid that leaves the plant.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
We have just received a consultant's report on a potential and done some analysis on looking at grabbing the heat for the stuff that comes into the plant.
Sure.
At Airport Parkway.
Yeah.
The finances on that didn't work out. Gas is very cheap. You have to remember that. That's one of the realities of the world. And that's why everybody's using it. But there is a technique to do that, and as a matter of fact, we probably will be talking to some people about what it would take to do that, just so that we understood it better.
Just for the record, gas is heavily subsidized. I just want to throw that out there, lest anyone watching this has any misunderstanding about that. If there was a recent report that if those subsidies were shifted to renewables, obviously that balance would flip. So I just want to set the record straight on that and make sure it's understood.
We have the numbers, and when the cost numbers change, we can flip it very quickly.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Jesse,
Is that it?
That was it.
I thought you were gonna.
Jesse, do you want me to?
10 more slides on this. This is great. I mean,
Do you want me to just show them real quick the other thing, what we're working on, very quickly? So we're working on trying to tell the story of climate action in South Burlington, and so give me 1 second. We're working with the ArcGIS story maps feature that we have access to, and these are just a couple of slides from that because it's still a draft work in progress, but we just wanted to give you a quick overview. I can't see my screen, but it should be somewhere here. Yep. So, you would scroll down and we can, this is not the live thing because it's not live yet, it's draft. But you would scroll down and, we'd have a timeline of some of the actions we have taken. We've included a glossary as well, so people can see, for example, Paris Agreement. What's the Paris Agreement? They can click there and understand what that is. All of these are links to the ordinance in this case, to the glossary, what's the solar ready zone, to the Energy Festival to learn more about that or any of our plans. And so the idea is to make it a little bit more interactive and a little bit more, a little bit easier for folks to know, like how we've moved from where we were to where we are now. And that's my 2-minute
That is
pitch.
great. Thank you so much.
great.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to item 10, which is receive an update on the status of the Chittenden County Public Safety Authority and seek concurrence with the plan for capital funds paid to the authorities. Stephen Locke, Fire Chief. Good evening, Stephen.
Good evening, Stephen Locke. I also serve as the chair of the Chittenden County Public Safety Authority. So I try to do the memo to provide some history because this does go back to 2016 in an effort to initiate regional dispatch services in several Chittenden County communities. And so if you concur, there's no action needed, but as we spell in the memo, the communities that bought in or moved forward with this initiative back in 2018 had started to put some money aside for future capital needs, and with a likelihood or thought process that the project was going to go forward. That total is about $500,000, with the city of South Burlington's share about $125,000. And at the last meeting of our work stakeholder group or our member group, the decision was made to ask our communities just to leave the money in there and to continue to monitor what's happening at the state level. So about 2 or 3 years ago, there was some really efforts made at the state legislative level to incentivize or regional dispatch efforts, although they put $11 million aside for this effort, but much of those monies to date have been spent on planning and what it could look like. So because we don't know really what the state's going to do in the next 1 to 2 years, the group believes that there's value in leaving the money in with CCPSA. And if there are opportunities to do some regional work, then those monies could be used to upfit a center or somehow within the regional dispatch efforts. And at any given time, if a community wanted their share of the monies back, they could just ask to have them refunded. The objective, though, was if there was a grant match or something along the way, having the monies set aside for that would be beneficial. And so, again, the request is that we just that you concur with our recommendation, which is just to leave the money in there and continue to have these discussions about regional dispatch. And if there are opportunities in the near future to move with that effort, that we will do that. We are also talking conversations about ways you could do some virtual regionalization, which we somewhat do that with Burlington right now by sharing a computer-aided dispatch center. So a computer-aided dispatch software that allows us to dispatch one another. So, and these monies could be used if South Burlington wanted in the future to be a contractor. So if we wanted to dispatch for another community, but they needed to make some improvements to their system to allow that to happen, we could then draw these monies out to do that. So the process, I think all of the people who have been working on this effort for a long time are still hopeful something could come out of it. But the system, the group will need to elect a new chair. I'll have one more meeting in May as the chair. Then I'll be stepping down. And Jesse, I assume will go back to having the role representing the city. And the group meets right now about once or twice a year as we're monitoring what's going on. But that I'll take any questions. But that's a high level overview of 10 years worth of work.
Thanks, Stephen. Is the stupid question, is the money sitting in an interest-bearing account?
It is. It's on a ladder. It's in laddered CDs.
Okay, good.
And we get that interest if we take our money out, I assume.
We get we get our proportional interest.
Yeah.
In the only expenses that the CCPSA currently has, we pay about $1,000 annually for insurance on our officers and the association, and we're looking into, do we really even have any liability given what our efforts are, and so we may not even have that in the future.
So you have a general sense of how long we wait until we pull the plug on this? If it doesn't pan out. Do you have any?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. I'll say two things. This effort's been going on for 60 years, but with that, 3 months ago, Jesse and I were prepared to make a recommendation to the group, the representatives, that we disband, give the money back, but keep the name, because it is a governance structure that could be used for other regional efforts. And all the other participants would prefer to not give up on this yet. So what I think, maybe a year or two, if there's no other further action, I think the opportunity now is going to be to pick up one or two customers as a contract for services, and then we become a service provider to another community, and we could use those monies for that. I think the police chief is looking at a reorg within his dispatch center that would allow for a civilian oversight, and then that would give us the capacity to start having these conversations with other communities about, are you willing to come to here as a contracted service versus a true regional effort where what this was initially intended to be.
We should just leave it alone.
I appreciate that.
I'd love to see some progress, but I know a lot of people like to see some progress. So, and the state needs to help move that progress along. So, yeah. All right. Thank you.
Can I ask one more quick question? I'm so sorry. It just dawned on me. And Elizabeth and I talked about something along these lines. What role would advocacy from this group of people have on the state's inertia on this issue, and I guess other issues like it? Yeah. I mean,
it's I don't know. Do you have a better answer? Mine's probably not a very good answer.
So I mean, we've all talked about this a bit, that I think more that this body doing more advocacy generally on lots of fronts would be very helpful. I think on this, I will just say for history, one of the reasons Steve and I are both here is because of regional dispatch. So I got to know this community through Kevin, through regional dispatch. Steve and I were on the board from Burlington and Winooski together, how we got to know each other. We've been doing this for a long time. I think the challenge I don't know if this is what you were going to say, but the challenge for us strongly advocating at the state level for this is that there are so many communities in Vermont for whom the dispatch system doesn't work far worse than it doesn't work for us right now. So the challenge for us right now is that we are basically double paying for dispatch because we are running our own system and we're paying state taxes for state PSAPs to operate. And we believe that there's a better way to do that locally, mostly for efficiency to the caller. Right now, if you call 911 from the city, it goes to a PSAP and then back to our dispatch center. So we think that there's a more efficient way to do that. Having said that, we also have a local dispatch center as opposed to rural Vermont where they're relying solely on PSAPs to dispatch, I don't know, many hundreds of volunteer, nonprofit, and municipal first responding groups. So the whole system is incredibly in need of different logic or different structure. And we are better off than most in that. So I think we will do advocacy on this over time, but I think that's the lobbying challenge.
No one feels sorry for the city of South Burlington over their dispatch capabilities, and I think that is when many other communities have working off index cards or paper books to who do they notify, and there's. I think it's a significant challenge for much of the state.
I think one of the ways that it would be helpful to work with the council on this in the future is us becoming a service provider to our neighbors. So we modernized our dispatch center 3 years ago. We have the capacity to dispatch for other communities, but that's going to take MOUs and budgets and partnership with other local elected officials and blah, blah. And I think that's where we hope is an incremental step to longer regional change over time.
Great, thank you. Item 11, appoint a council representative to the board of the South Burlington City Center Collaborative. Raise your hand if you want to be on the board. Lori, we select you.
Can I make a quick comment?
Please.
I have been trying to sit in since on these meetings since Anne left. And it's a very vibrant group and they're really doing a lot of good work. I do think the strongest connections are between economic development and the SP3C is a co-sponsor of the Energy Festival, and that might be a looser connection, but in listening to some of the work they're doing, I think those are the strongest connections with the organization right now, from my perspective.
Am I hearing you volunteering? Okay.
What is the time commitment?
I don't know.
So they have monthly, you've been sitting in monthly board meetings. I think they are during the day in the morning. And I don't know what day they meet.
And they may be modifying those because they did recently name Superintendent Dr. Joe Clark to their board. So I do believe the meetings, I can't recall the day, but it was mornings. So they may be modifying that to accommodate their reconfigured board.
I'm out. You're out.
If no one else wants to do it,
Well, we can wait for Lori, but we could just appoint Lori.
Well, we can wait for Lori. Let's see. Let's see.
Just appoint him.
Let's see if Lori would like to do it.
Okay.
Okay.
Can we wait?
Table to Lori. Yep. You
Um,
sure can.
But I'll just put Lori's name down here and we'll just, question mark.
I guess I would make one little pitch here as you all think about it, and to the next meeting we'll put it back on. You know, I think one of the reasons the MOU that you approved with SB3C to have a counselor on the board is that right now we are the majority funder of this or the city is a majority funder of this organization. So to be good stewards of those dollars, having that close connection is important. And you know, SB3C is really one of our main tools for growing the vibrancy of City Center to prove the success of our TIF over time, and has huge potential to really help us create community in City Center. So it is another obligation. You guys work really hard anyway, but I hope it would be a fun opportunity for the right person over time. Okay. Table to the next meeting.
And I would consider it if the meetings were feasible for me, but I can't commit to mornings. It's just not even.
Okay then. Item 12, which is discuss the FY27 policy priorities and strategies process and provide direction to staff.
So I might bring it over Anna.
Anna's online, Anna Dabrowski, data manager, and Jesse's here.
Anna, are you there?
I am here.
Hi. Do you
Hello.
want to walk us through this?
Sure. So we are bringing forth our recommendation for the process that we'd like to follow this year for setting the annual policy priorities and strategies. We've shared with you a memo that outlines the background of the PP&S process, as Jesse has led it for several years. We've been making iterative improvements to how we're managing the PP&S process and reporting over time. So for FY27, we have proposed the process and the timeline we would like to follow for making our priorities for fiscal year 27. As part of the memo, we've outlined the pieces of information that we would be collecting for each priority that we'd like to propose to the council. And how we'd be describing those priorities. I wanted to give the council an opportunity to comment on any of this and the information they see in here, as well as the timeline that we've outlined for the process. One of our hopes for this meeting is that the council will set the date for a council meeting with the leadership team. This would be a working meeting during which we would review all the policy priorities that have been proposed by committees, by council members, and by staff, and try to determine which priorities we want to move forward with for FY27.
Is council comfortable with the schedule? Any comments or feedback?
I have feedback. I just quickly, I thought that this document was very easy to understand as a newcomer to this council. So thank you for the clarity of your description. Anyway, just want to throw that out there.
Can I make a quick comment? I know at the meeting I wasn't able to attend. The issue of seeking feedback from the charter committee came up, and I don't know the right forum. I know the charter committee by our own definition is one that the council engages on an as needed or decided basis. The concern I have is that we have this group of community volunteers that's assigned to the charter committee. There's been some transition in leadership after the last charge that they had. And I do feel like, when we are engaging committees around public art, the sextons, safe routes to schools, and not a governance committee, it just to have the conversation around, is there anything that might be on the radar screen? It feels like a gap in that process. It doesn't mean we're obligated to do anything, but I do feel like giving that committee sort of the same opportunity to provide feedback make sense from my perspective. So I don't know if it's probably too late for the May meetings, but I'm wondering if there might be something for the when we do the strategy and priorities meeting, if there might be an opportunity to have that conversation with the charter committee. And I actually do think there's the potential for an issue that may come up based on what the legislature does with the local options tax that Stowe has in front of them, that there may be an opportunity to consider a charge associated with the LOT.
Okay. Thanks, Elizabeth. Do we want to ask, there were some key questions at the bottom about the role the public would play in the process. Do we want to change anything? Because they had attended the meeting that, what we call that's not really a retreat, is it? Were we calling it a retreat before?
Working meeting.
Working meeting, okay. But they have attended the working meeting in the past, and I think that was okay.
That worked okay.
Yeah.
You think it didn't work okay then, Jesse? Is that why you're suggesting a possible change?
So last year we changed it. So in the meeting before the working meeting, we had
Nobody came.
what? Nobody came. So it was an attempt at something which didn't work. So
But people came to the working meeting.
people came to the working meeting. Just ask the question.
Yeah, okay. How do we best use the council leadership team working meeting time?
So I mean, we've used a very similar process in the past where we kind of walk through a series of questions, conversations about what's been proposed. It's a little different every year depending on how much overlap there is or how many active open questions there are. So if you all would like to ask for something specific, you certainly can, or we can see what we get back from everybody and make a agenda based on that.
Back from the leadership team? Or
Back from us.
Back from you, back
okay.
from the committees, and
the
back
committees,
from
okay,
staff.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea too.
I do think one thing, Jesse, you've outlined effectively in the preparation for this is the amount of staff time and financial resources that are dedicated to existing, rollover priorities and ongoing operations. So I think it would be important to hear from you and any of your leadership team that is included in that meeting, kind of what the baseline is, just so there's a clear understanding of where there's rollover priorities on an annual basis and where there's financial commitments as well.
I guess along that same theme, in terms of additional information, is whether there's capacity for new things, or whether or not any new thing has to be replaced by taking off an old thing.
Is that information usually provided beforehand, or we just walk into the meeting cold and not know? I mean, I know there's a lot of information in the city plan, et cetera, and the previous policies and priorities document. But anyway, the assessment that Elizabeth requested, is there a way to get that beforehand, or is that already out there somewhere in the shared drive?
So it's not, I would say, an analysis that's that numeric. And Anna, if you have ideas here, feel free to jump in. I think how staff historically has tried to balance that is receiving the feedback of what you all want to be working on and what you want to be continuing and what we want to discontinue. And then staff's providing a set of recommendations. So when we warn the meeting, we'll send you kind of a proposed set with things that we've heard from you that are on a bike rack and things that we are agreeing, like, yes, absolutely, we should move forward. And then you all toggle those things on and off. So the capacity analysis is really in that set of recommendations because, quite frankly, and this is a change Anna made last year, is the lines on the priorities within the policy priorities are not equal. So like building a bridge over the interstate is not the same as updating a water ordinance. And so it's hard for us to quantify the difference and then also quantify are all the lines Tom's lines and only one sits with Alana, or are they equally distributed across the expertise of the department or of the city staff? So that's how we try and juggle it in our recommendation to you, and you will get that ahead of time.
Great, thank you.
Can I point out two, Anna mentioned this earlier, but two important dates. So one, on this timeline, May 20th is when we hope for you all to give us your feedback and ideas, which will allow us time to integrate your thinking with the committee's thinking into a set of recommendations. And then right now, all four of you can do June 17th for a working meeting. So I've emailed Lori on vacation, sorry, Lori, to see if that is possible for him. But fingers crossed, it will be June 17th.
For the full day
Yep.
event.
Yep. And that's what for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. I already had that day off, so yeah, great, thanks.
Anna, anything else I missed that you want to highlight?
I don't think so. I think you did a good job explaining our goal in getting feedback from the committees in those documents, the work plans that they're submitting to you all, and then getting your thoughts as council and combining that with the staff identified priorities.
Yeah, this is really clear. Every year it gets.
Anna's a rock
It's very
star.
tight. It's very tight.
Can I clarify
Lot of
the May
value.
20th expectations? Is that at a meeting or is that in
Submission.
writing?
Submitted.
Submissions.
Just an email.
Submitted, okay.
Yep. And whatever. Anna and I had a whole conversation today. If we ask you to do a template, and we're like, nope, just in whatever form you would like to give it to
Just
us,
Bang it out.
please give it to us.
Great. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you, Anna.
All right, moving on to item 13, discuss council interest in changes to the policy committee structure.
Oh,
Oh.
sorry, that's me again, isn't it?
Yes.
Sorry. Move on to something else. So at your last meeting, you talked about, where advertisements are out for new committee members. If you wanted to make any changes to committee structures at this point, I think you specifically talked about naming charge of energy and climate, and you talked about NRCC recreation and parks overlap. So I said I would put it back on the agenda. Here it is. It might be hard to talk about this also without Lori, since he is liaison to two of those committees. But if you wanted to talk about changes, here's an opportunity. We can also do this later on as well.
I have two that I'd like to talk about, and I think we should come back to NRCC and Park when Lori's here. But yeah, I would love to, and look, we should probably get feedback from the Energy Committee too on this, but rename the committee Climate and Energy, and to include in their charge focus on climate change mitigation and resilience. It doesn't really say it exactly now.
Yeah, I would support that, and I think we can hold off on the charge till we have the input meeting specifically, because I think we'll hear more from the. Hopefully, we'll hear more from the Energy Committee too.
Then along the same line, but slightly different, I'd love to also adjust the Housing Committee charge to focus on energy to include a charge to focus on energy efficient housing and climate friendly housing.
Well, wouldn't that come under the new Climate Energy Committee?
No, not really. I mean, look, climate is a multidisciplinary, kind of cross. I mean, it's not, you can't just have like one. We know that. You can't have just one group. There are things that will come up in housing that will have, climate impacts and climate, there will be levers that the Housing Committee will see and can pull and can push, because that's the way climate is. Climate just is across everything. And I think including it explicitly in the charge that they need to think about would be useful.
I agree with that idea, and I just have a question about it. What would the relationship between that committee and say the I don't know if it would be the DRB or the Planning Commission be, right? Because
I mean, the way
You
I'm
see what I'm
thinking about it is like they're thinking, the housing committee can say maybe we should think about building smaller houses. How do we incent smaller homes, right? It wouldn't be like exactly something under the energy committee. It's something that they could incubate that idea and maybe kick it up to the planning commission. It's just one thing, right? But there are ideas like that that I think intersect with things that the housing committee could or should be thinking about that will affect climate.
Yeah, from my perspective, again, I think this will be part of the May conversations. I do know the housing committee will be coming forward with a focus on, if not housing needs assessment, a housing action plan, and the interaction between committees is where I think some of those initiatives would be addressed, where a committee would be looking for input. Like I know the housing committee member has been asked to provide input on the EV plan. So vice versa, it could be the housing committee might be asked to have input on a newly constituted climate energy committee plan. So I think it's important we go through the process of the work plans to figure out if the charges specifically need to change, because there is language in the current work plan of the housing committee relative to energy efficient homes and assessing that. So I can't rephrase it off the top of my head, but it may address part of what you're asking for.
Yeah, I guess I just see that as a little backwards. I mean, in the sense that we set the policy, we set what they should be working on, then that drives the work plan. So I don't know. I kind of see us in the role of defining what we think they should be, what their charter is, what their charge is. And we could discuss that with them, but to me, it's not because it's in the work plan. It's okay. It should be in the charge, right?
I can see extending their charge to incorporate some wording about energy. I don't have a problem with that. But I mean, the state pretty much dictates what the RBES standard is, right? And whatever Scott says it is for now, right? So, no,
we've adopted stricter rules.
Well, we don't know whether those are enforceable at this point, right? Based upon we don't know what the executive order is, right?
Stretch code is still enforceable. That's what I'm sorry, Paul told us our stretch code is still.
So if there is an RBS that's already applicable, then the only difference they can make is like where to build the housing and what size it is, and I mean, see what I'm saying?
Well, there might be other things. I don't know what all those things might
I don't know either.
I'm just
but
saying
they're just
that,
trying to build more housing, period, because there's not enough housing. Right?
Well, but part of our goal, our mission, in our city plan is when we build housing, we want to build climate smart housing, and so in my mind, that should be part of what they're thinking about as they think about housing. It just seems very natural.
I understand. I'm just saying there's already a standard that they have that construction has to follow anyway.
But we know, Tim, that the city has done more stuff. We've got rules about dense housing. We've got rules about EV charging housing. We've got rules about solar red. I mean, but there's and it's not an exhaustive list. And so I think that there's creative thinking that can go on, to expand that list, because I myself can come up with half dozen other things.
So if you want to extend their charge, it'll be great, but I would leave the name the same.
I wouldn't change the name for housing. I would like to incorporate in their charge something about climate and energy efficiency.
Something about energy efficiency.
I would call it climate-friendly housing,
It's
I
all
would
about
also-
energy efficiency, really.
Well, it's not just efficiency; it's also carbon efficiency, right? I mean, you can have a very efficient home that uses natural gas, right?
We already have a that's not a problem, right?
No, I'm just saying it's efficiency is not the only thing, right? There's also being carbon smart. Okay. So I mean, it's more than that.
There's also an affordability issue.
And affordability.
Just saying.
Long-term affordability.
I think, if I'm understanding correctly, I think all these things can be true simultaneously, and you could just build in, language to make it more more into the consciousness of the committee, I guess. I think Elizabeth pointed out that they already have some language in there about about climate change, et cetera. I don't think there's any harm in, elevating it in the the routine discussions of the committee, because it also saves money. A lot of these things do save money and make things more affordable in the long run. And, there are resilience considerations as well. It's not just mitigation, but, we should be thinking about resilience, et cetera. So I don't think that, in other words, I don't think that there's a conflict here. Maybe I'm misunderstanding.
I don't mind adding to the charge. I just don't want it to be the main focus, because the main focus needs to be on getting housing built.
No, I agree, Tim.
All right.
Yeah.
Somebody in the audience wants to speak? Do any other councilors have any comments before we allow the public to speak? Ryan?
Thank you, Tim. Ryan Doyle speaking. Speaking of the environment, public transportation is really good for the environment. And there is a committee that already talks about a lot of alternative transportation modes, but they don't have the specific language that focuses on public transportation in their charge and mission. And that is something that I would recommend that you folks consider sculpting some language for.
Am I allowed to ask Ryan a question? Or am I not allowed to ask Ryan a question directly? Is that?
I didn't hear you.
Oh, am I allowed to ask Ryan a question?
If you want to, go ahead.
Okay. Are you referring to the Bike Ped Committee?
I'm sorry, yes.
Thank you.
Question for Jesse, because this is also like the Energy Committee often talks about public transportation, and the Bike Ped Committee sometimes does. Where, I guess, maybe that's another thing we need to clarify, right? Because we have who is which committee is the kind of principal committee that focuses on public transportation?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's in any committee's charge at the moment, and in the adopted resolution charge. I think staff spends a huge amount of time on public transportation, especially now with Alana and Paul on the GMT board. So I think it's thus far a priority that really has been more staff held than committee held.
But when staff presents about GMT changes, is it? I mean,
It's to you guys, really.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's
I
kind
know
of
when I was on the
traces
Energy Committee, they spent some time talking about public transportation. But maybe it does make sense to realign that and specifically put it in the charge of Bike Ped. I'm not sure. That does feel kind of good to me.
I guess I think it's not a bad idea, and I think we could craft some language. I do, again, kind of tracking the money. Just a reminder that you spend about $800,000 a year on public transportation. So it is something that I would always want the council as a whole to be a bit more engaged with than other things. I could ask Paul and Alana if they had an opinion of where it could sit.
That'd be helpful. I do. Yeah, it's interesting because I think we know we need that scale to really bring that vibrancy to city center, and with the balance of the TIF being funded over the next 8+ years, it would make sense to be focusing on that to sort of retain that scale or build that scale.
Any other comments? And we'll wait for Lori for natural resources, right?
Can I make a quick comment? This is not relative to structure, but I did, I know this probably didn't get covered at the meeting I wasn't at, but one, I did want to ask at some point in our review of committees that we get an update on where our spending is on the stipend budget line, just so we know what that's at. And then I also thought, I know there was some criteria that might be available relative to committee appointments on attendance, but I wondered if we shouldn't be considering a more specific attendance practice. And I know I had a recommendation that might be considered that if a committee member misses 3 consecutive meetings, the chair or council liaison would just have a conversation with that member about availability and continued interest. just reinforcing the need or expectation for participation. And then if a member missed 50% of meetings in a 12-month period, that the council could retain the right to replace the member if necessary. And I didn't know how the council felt about maybe modifying that practice, or if we wanted to get more feedback on it.
Is there? I mean, have you seen issues that would necessitate us adopting kind of prescriptive rules like that?
Well, I can't speak for all the other committees, but I feel like oftentimes committee attendance can wane, and when there's heavy workload, it falls on fewer shoulders. So I think sometimes in the past we've considered expanding committee members to accommodate workload, but I think reinforcing participation and maybe being a little more specific when we're interviewing candidates, saying, are you available to attend the meetings, that there be the expectation set. So we'll have that opportunity
I'm just asking,
coming up pretty soon.
Like, let me just clarify. So like the committees that I sit on, I've seen pretty robust participation, but I'm asking you, have you seen issues that kind of, to the contrary, that require kind of prescriptive rules of the kind you're articulating?
I have seen that, yes. Yeah.
So in what venue would we want to discuss this and make a decision? Future agenda item or?
Well, I guess for both of these conversations, charges to committees and attendance policies, the updated stipend information, I'll just put that on I'll provide you that information. With head nods that you all are interested in exploring some of these things, I would put it back on the agenda likely for one of your meetings where you're either doing interviews or making appointments, and you can weigh in on whether I've captured your conversation correctly. I may also, for the ones that are about a committee, loop in the council liaison into drafting that.
Okay. Sounds good. All right, let's move to item 14, which is convene as Liquor Control Commission. Can I have a motion to convene as Liquor Commission?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. It's unanimous. There are many, many, many entities here that are looking for new license approval. So can I have a motion to approve all of these?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And it's unanimous as well. Now we need a motion to come out of Liquor Control.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. It's unanimous. We are now out of Liquor Control, back to item 15, which is review the significant agenda topics for the May 4th meeting. Man, time is flying.
So your next two meetings will be heavy in committee reports, recommendations to you of policies and strategies. So next meeting, you'll hear from the Bike Ped Committee, Natural Resources, the Sextons, and Recreation and Parks. You'll also have a discussion about pickleball at Samansky Park and receive the rental registry annual report.
Great. And maybe discuss again how we move forward with
Yes.
With what?
Task force.
figuring out who the two people.
Yes.
For the what?
The two people.
The March 11th process.
Oh, yes, yes. The two people. Got it. Okay. Any comments on the future agenda? Other than that? All right. Is there any other business?
Two quick things. I don't know when it's appropriate, but I think it would be helpful to get a legislative update at some point on the agenda. And I know people are busy right now, but at some point. And then secondarily, just wondering when we would be getting updates on Bartlett Bay.
We are reviewing that timeline tomorrow morning in our executive team meeting. I believe it will likely be the second meeting in May or the first meeting in June. I also anticipate it will be more than one meeting for you all to have conversation, take the necessary actions if you so choose to have a second bond vote.
Okay. And then have all the meetings that we've gotten Google polls on have been scheduled yet? I know we got the June 17th right here.
So they have not all been scheduled yet. As I said, we're hoping Lori can do June 17th. And then there are two dates, not I actually put it, let me see. Right now, 3 of you can do committee interviews the evening of May 28th and the evening of June 3rd. You're the one I haven't heard of from that.
I responded earlier saying
On the policies. Oh, did you?
Yeah,
Is that? Oh,
yeah.
then those 2 dates are also good for everybody but for Lori.
Oh.
So I will send out holds for all of those things in the hopes that Lori can make it work.
For Lori, because you don't know what Lori can do, or you've heard of the.
I have not heard from
Okay.
him yet.
Right?
So you would have that conversation at your May 18th meeting. In executive session.
Okay. Anything else? Motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn. Second. Motion to second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Don't go anywhere. We have to sign the red book.
Yes. Thank you all.
Thank you.